We just went down there as two teenagers with a dream. And then from that day, my life changed. 2 times death and Outlaw Posse. When I got the call for All Saints, they weren't All Saints at the time. They were just some up-and-coming girl band.
What happened to Outlaw?
Ooh, I just sold 5 million records. That's a fucking piss take. Yeah, all them dudes go, that just sound like noise to me. I was never into that. Cashing large checks. We weren't though. I've never set out to make a pop record, and I don't think I've ever made a pop record. I think they jumped me in a club. I remember just feeling bam in my face. It's having the balls, man, to fucking dare to be different. Went to probably every single label, and they was all like, no, no, no. Never give up on your dreams. It don't matter how old you are. We were our own biggest fans. We didn't care what everyone else was doing.
It's not every day you get the chance to sit down with an artist who sold over 12 million records worldwide and hear their story. His journey as an artist began as member of a pioneering UK hip-hop duo. He then went on to produce for one of the world's most iconic all-girl groups, and that's just the beginning. But if you ask me, fame and glory were never his driving force. To fans of early UK hip-hop, he's recognised as one half of the revered group Outlaw Posse. To the rest of the world, he's the production mastermind behind All Saints' success. Producer, pioneer, and the true legend that is KGee. I have to do this.
Yeah, that was a nice intro, mate. Nice.
Bro, first of all, thank you very much for coming through. And I know we've been planning this for some time now. And I'm a bit baffled as to how we don't really know your story the way that we should know, the extent of it. Because you've done a lot.
Yeah, I've done quite a bit. And I've done a lot of reflecting lately on my career. And I've forgotten half the things I've done. You know what I mean? You're talking 35 plus years in the game. So it's a long time, man. And thank you for inviting me to your studio, man. And we'll get digging deep into it.
You said 35 years.
Yeah.
From when I remember when you first made an appearance was 88.
Yeah, so it's longer
so
than
it's 37.
Yeah,
37
actually,
years.
yeah.
And then
right.
all the years before that you were actually building up to the moment, that led to that moment.
No, 100%. So the journey probably started from about the age of 15, really, getting into music as a career, which obviously I didn't see it as a career at that age. All I'd seen was Grandmaster Flash on the turntables. I thought, yeah, that's me. That's what I want to do. And I had a paper round that I used to earn £5 a week. And I saved up for about a year. There was a electrical store in Hammersmith, and I used to walk past every day and see these 2 shiny turntables. So I got a paper round, £5 a week for a year or two to get my Technics 1200s. And then that was the catalyst for where I am today.
And back then, turntables weren't £2 a piece.
There was a lot of money, man. For a 15-year-old, it was a lot of money.
What was it, £400 or £500?
It was about, it was around that. It was probably about 300 quid, something like that. I mean, that might as well be £1 million.
But bro, before we get into the depth of everything that you have done, can we get a little bit of insight into your upbringing, your background?
I grew up in West London, and the son of a Jamaican father and an English mother, which at the time was not it, as they say. Mixed couples weren't really accepted then. My musical heritage came from my dad because he came from sound system culture in Jamaica. My granddad had a sound system called Green Lantern. When my dad came over in the 60s, he had a sound system called Clive Coxon Sound. So we had blues parties in the house all the time with dub, reggae, you know. If you know what a blues is, this was blues parties, you know what I mean, every weekend. So my dad had a crazy record collection. He had the big speakers, the stack unit with the 1 turntable. And I remember getting up in the middle of the night sometimes and he'd pick me up, let me change the record. So, it was just in my blood from day one. So from West London, Actually, I never moved out of West London. I just moved around in West London. So that's where it all started.
But is that where you actually come from originally?
Where I was born.
Yeah.
I was actually born in country, man. I was I was born in a place called Taplow, which is in Maidenhead. But I was there for like a year. I have no idea why my parents were out there, but that's where they ended up. And then they moved to Fulham when I was probably about 1. And we lived, I can't remember the name of the street, but it was on the border of Wandsworth and Fulham, SW6.
When you were there, as you were growing up, there was, you had your connections with a lot of other people that followed your path, if you want to call it that, or followed their own path. But you did also, from my understanding, introduce certain people to the music business that went on to do some huge things.
Yeah, so I think I know who you're talking about.
Well, there's
one
a
person,
few,
one person
there?
in particular. Yeah, there is quite a few. So me and Darkus grew up on the same street.
That's Darkest Beast.
Yeah, we grew up on the same
Island
street.
Records.
Our parents knew each other. We went to the same nursery. Then we went to the same secondary school, same high school, and we've been friends ever since.
What was your involvement in getting Darkest into music?
Well, as legend has it. So me and Bello were doing our thing. Bello from Outlaw Posse, right? We were doing our thing from school, and I think Darkus used to see us and was inspired by what we were doing at the time, and was like, "Hold on a sec, you guys make tunes, and you're putting out records and you're doing shows." And then I think that kind of caught his interest, and that's kind of it. That's what he said. That's what he told me anyway. That we inspired him to get into the music business in the first place.
And he's recently put out a book over the last couple of years, and you obviously get a mention in the book as well.
Yeah, I read the book, man. The book's brilliant. And what's different about it is that it's not really a book about the music business per se. It's more about his life and the struggles, with mental health and the barriers that he faced being a black executive and being one of the first black president of a major label in this country.
And that was Island Records.
That was Island Records. And it's an inspirational story, man, because we come from nothing. You know what I mean? I mean, when I say I grew up in Fulham, Fulham's, it's different to what it was back then. Do you know what I mean? I basically lived in a squat. You know what I'm saying? So we didn't have much money, but what we did have was drive and determination.
If you look through the history of artists and whatever, most of the people that go on to make a difference, not necessarily make money, but most of the people that go on to make a difference come from nothing.
Yeah.
In your own words, when we were having a conversation recently, come from the gutter.
100%, man. We didn't have anything. Do you know what I mean? I remember walking to school with holes in my shoes. You know what I mean? You know them ones where you have to get the cornflakes box, tear it,
and put it inside.
Put it inside. So your socks don't get wet. You know what I mean? When it's raining and stuff like that. And not having really any money for lunch. I mean, look, we weren't starving. We always found a way. But on reflection, we were poor. You know what I'm saying? That's the bottom line.
Do you reckon that's the main driving force for you to do what you did?
Not really, because we never knew that we was poor. Because we was always hustling. Like I said, I had a paper round. We used to go knocking on people's doors for odd jobs, cleaning a man's car, cleaning out his garden, or we go to a building site and move a load of bricks, all that kind of shit. Or we go to the local store, help them unload their van of all the soft drinks and all that kind of shit. So we were kind of a little bit street savvy. One thing we weren't was criminals or anything like that. We never got into the wrong side of the law. But we were just, I guess, entrepreneurial in our ways of trying to get some money and just trying to eat and just trying to buy a new pair of trainers. That was kind of it.
We mentioned Darkest,
Yeah.
Darkest Beast and Island Records and everything. But for anybody who doesn't know, because we're in the industry, so we know his name. We know what he's done and whatever.
Yeah.
What is the biggest accolade that Darkest has done that the world would recognize?
Amy Winehouse.
All right, explain that.
So when he was, I'm not even sure, I think he might have been A&R manager at the time. I'm not sure of the correct title that he had, but he might have been junior A&R. But he discovered Amy Winehouse early on, and Did
he discover or did he poach? Because I know a
Yeah,
different story.
well, put it this way, he sought her out. He sought her out. He got her, and they put out one album. I think it was Frank, which done well, went gold, I believe. And then, you know, with the amount of record sales that that first album had in today's climate, she would have probably got dropped. But the difference is, Darkus believed in her. You know, he kept her on. He kept developing her, and Back to Black, as you know, was a album that just changed the world. Absolutely. And I remember Darkus playing. He came around my house and he played me. He goes, "Listen, man, I want to play your record, and you tell me what you think." And he played Rehab. And I was just like, "Oh shit, that might be the best record I've ever heard." Like, it was so phenomenal and so different. Yeah, it blew me away, and I was like, "Wow, this is gone." Absolutely.
So did that in any way inspire you to get onto the path you later got onto with All Saints and stuff like that?
Well, this was no. Do you know what? That was after All Saints. So the All Saints thing came about probably about a couple of years after Outlaw Posse kind of disbanded.
Stevie Hyper D.
Yeah.
So this is another person that was pretty much on your road.
Yeah. So we grew up in Fulham. Like I said, me and Darkus grew up on the same street, virtually opposite each other, and there was a few of us, a little gang that grew up around that area. And Stevie lived around the corner, and we all went to the same school as well. So it's amazing the amount of talent that came out of just that little street. And back then, there was more community, so all the kids used to hang out together, and we just happened to have a passion for music from a very young age. Do you know what I mean? Like, I remember building a little sound. Well, you call it a sound system. It was basically having the turntables and a couple of speakers, which we used to put in a trolley, and get on the train and go and play in local pubs or parties or whatever. So, and we were into sound system culture there then, like Saxon sound and all that kind of stuff. And we used to practice toasting. Stevie he was a bad boy back then. I mean, we were kids, you know what I'm saying? But who knew? You got one guy that's going to end up being the CEO of Island Records, one guy that was instrumental in the creation of jungle music MCing, and then me going on to produce one of the biggest girl bands in the world, and we all live virtually on the same street.
That's nuts, isn't it?
Yeah. It is crazy when you think about it, because I've never actually thought of it like that, but it's mad.
If anything, that street probably needs to be renamed.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because of what it's done.
Yeah. It is mad. Yeah, when I think about it, yeah.
Obviously, we had our New Cross and our Brixton and our West London areas and whatever, Ladbroke and wherever else. But there was still a community with all of us. Like, we all kind of supported each other and stuff. What was it like for you with regards to getting support from outside of your area?
Depends what time you're talking about.
Okay, so Outlaw, as soon as Outlaw came.
So Outlaw Posse, I mean, we were both West London boys, man. We didn't really venture across the water to South that often. And we kind of felt, I don't want to say marginalised, but we kind of felt like we was in our own little bubble, because we actually didn't know that many crews outside of where we lived. A lot was going on in South London, but not so much in West London. There was shit going on, but we were kind of just doing our own thing. And when it came to doing shows or all that kind of shit, we kind of felt a little bit on the outside, you know what I mean?
Was that
within the UK scene?
Was that general?
Yeah, that was generally the feeling we kind of got.
Can I show you something?
Yeah, go on.
So, this is my record, Mind of an Ordinary Citizen. Do me a favor, bro. Read the shout outs at the back.
It's a bad man tune, by the way.
Thank you.
Right. Do I need my glasses? I think I do. I'm 55, man. Give me a break. Right, soon to break through hard. Oh, soon to break through hard, all right. K, King and Baron, Forte, Apache alongside Capone, Hard Noise, B-Sprint, Black Knights, Dolby D, Doc and Dazzle, Starlight Assault Squad, SAS, Gunshot, 2 Times Death, and Outlaw Posse. Yes, okay. Bad Intention. Anyway, forget the rest of them, right? So I didn't even know that you was aware of us at that time. And what's funny reading this, because it says soon to break through. So that's mad. Because I remember always thinking that you were just an incredible artist at the time. Do you know what I mean?
Thank you.
And yeah.
So what I'm saying is, even if you made a record, it didn't necessarily mean you broke through. You just made a record.
No, exactly.
And I believed all of those names that were there, I believed they had something.
Yeah.
You know, and they were the people I was seeing. There was others, but I didn't necessarily hear of them at the time.
Yeah.
You know, they were just bubbling in the underground and whatever. But I heard of you. I love what you were doing. Like while some of us were going for that hard sound, you were going for the funky sound.
Yeah.
And it was almost like if you take, say, for example, not necessarily Kid and Play, because that was too happy-go-lucky, right? But if you take, say, somebody like YZ or a Master Race or a Big Daddy Kane, I was hearing influences from all of those.
Yeah, so we were kind of big fans of Tribe Called Quest as well, and De La Soul, and that kind of era. And in terms of the sound, obviously, like I said to you, my dad had a huge record collection. So the first record that made us kind of blow up was Original Dope, and it had this
1988.
Flute. Yeah.
And
1988.
I spotted a mistake in that when I first picked it up.
What was that?
Because I did have the record. I don't have none of my records anymore. But they spelt your name wrong.
Oh, did they?
They spelled it with a C. And you done a track called with a K.
Yeah,
So
you remember?
Yeah.
Oh, well spotted, man. Yeah, because that used to be a bugbear of mine, man.
Is that why you done the record, though, with a K?
Huh? Yeah, that's why we done the record with a K, because every publication, they always used to spell my name with a C. I was like, my DJ name's KGee. Where's the C come from? It makes sense that my name's Karl, and it's anyway. But yeah, so I stole a record from my dad's record collection, right? But who was the artist again? I can't remember off the top of my head now. But anyway, it had this flute sample in it. And I thought, oh, that's going to be dope. I didn't even have a sampler. I had what's called a Bell digital delay, right? And I borrowed some money off my mum because I saw an 808 drum machine in Notting Hill Tape and Exchange going for about 100 quid. So I bought that, and I somehow managed to figure out that I could sample with a delay. I have no idea how I did it, right?
Kids in it.
Exactly. You find ways, right? And I could trigger the sample and make it loop with the 808 drum machine. And that's how we done our early demos. Do you know what I mean? And I recorded it on a 4-track Tascam. You know what I mean? Raw as fuck little thing.
One of
like
them
this.
is a grey thing. Had a recorder, a cassette on the left.
Totally, yeah.
I remember I had one.
So that's how that record was born, and I think that was kind of what captured the imagination of the UK hip-hop scene. And then, that was kind of it, man.
And from that moment, you went and played this to somebody in particular?
Well, actually, yeah. So before we had a record deal, we used to go to this shop called Spin-Offs in Fulham. So I was a budding DJ, right? So I used to go there every week and buy the latest imports and all that kind of stuff. And Richie, who was a brilliant scratch DJ at the time, I was just thinking about him the other day, actually, because he was the first one to put us on. And I used to try and emulate him because I used to have all his mixes on a cassette. Anyway, he used to work in this record shop, right, called Spin-Offs. And I had this cassette in my pocket for about 3 months. Every time I went there to play it to him, there's too many people in the shop. So I was like, no, fuck that. Anyway, one time I went there, it was empty. And I was like, yo, let's have a listen to this, man. Just tell me. I just wanted his thoughts. I wasn't thinking about deals, record label, nothing. And he was like, I see his head start nodding. Then he's like, who produced that? I was like, what do you mean produced it? He goes, who did the I don't know what he's talking about. He goes, who did the music? I was like, I kind of put it together. And he goes, who's rapping on it? I goes, mate from my school, Bello. And he's like, okay, well, I've just started a label called G Street Records with a guy called John Baker. How do you feel about coming down to the studio? And I was just like, are you serious? He's like, yeah. So then I called Bello. I was like, listen, man, we've got an opportunity to go in a proper studio. And that was it. And he just let us do our thing. We recorded our first song, which was called Party, original title. And that's how it started. That's how we got in the studio with G Street.
So you had Richard Spin-Offs. He recognized you. You went down to G Street. Was a deal on offer straight away?
No. No. We just went down there as two teenagers with a dream. And we walked into the studio, professional studio, and it just looked like the Starship Enterprise to me. You know what I mean? I just turned up with a couple of records to sample and no idea how to use the studio. But I knew what I wanted in my head. So then I just told the engineer what I wanted, what parts of the record I wanted to sample, programmed a little drum beat, and we made our first record, man. And then from that, they believed in us. They thought we had something. You know what I mean? We were young, we were fresh, we kind of just did our thing. And then by the time we'd done Original Dope, I think that's when they were like, okay, these kids got something, man. And then we recorded an album, which came out in 1990, as you know.
My Afro is on Fire.
My Afro is on Fire. And the rest is history.
Leading up to these moments, we as youngsters, we used to listen to certain radio stations, but I keep getting this story from everybody. Everybody was struggling to pick up reception.
Oh,
What was your story?
No,
I know you must have a story.
No, so listen, so as you know, right, I used to go to a school in Fulham called Henry Compton, right? And I remember we finished school at 3:30, and then there was a Tim Westwood show on LWR. His hip-hop show, I think, was up on about 4 o'clock or 4:30. So obviously I had to walk home from there all the way, because I lived in Shepherd's Bush at the time. Walk home from Fulham to Shepherd's Bush, no money for the bus, right? And then, with my crappy little radio with the aerial broken, I used to sit in the middle of my kitchen on the top of a ladder, holding a beatbox on my shoulder for literally 2-3 hours, just recording. And I was in pain the whole time. But it was more important to record the music and listen to the latest hip-hop, because you couldn't listen to hip-hop anywhere. It wasn't generally out there like that. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, sat on top of a ladder in the middle of my mum's kitchen with a beatbox on my shoulder. Like this.
Do you know how many of us did similar things?
Yeah.
All of us, because reception wasn't the same as it is now.
Nah.
Do you know what I mean?
There was no digital radio, all that shit.
No.
But that's how obsessed we were, though.
Yeah, of course.
We was obsessed with music, but more to the point, obsessed with hip-hop, because it was new.
Your obsession, was it to do with like just listening to the music as a fan, or was it like you were learning as you were going along? You were like, I could do this.
From a very small child, right? I always had a record player in my bedroom. One of them ones you could stack the 7 inches on, and it had the arm on it and shit. And I was buying records from about the age of 8. Religiously, any money I got, Woolworths, I go to Woolworths and buy. I think the first 7-inch I bought was Ghost Town.
Oh, right.
By the Specials, right?
Yeah, of course.
And the obsession came from there, but it was in 79, right, when I heard Rapper's Delight. Because my dad had a record shop. So they used to do record distribution. It was a reggae shop, but they used to do record distribution as well. And I had this record by Sugar Hill Gang. And I remember hearing it going, what the fuck is this?
It's different, wasn't it?
What? Can you imagine hearing hip-hop for the first time? Come on, man.
All of us that were into hip-hop, to us, that was like a movement. It was something.
Listen, it was crazy.
But to the average ear, to the average listener, it was some guys talking on a record.
Yeah, I didn't know. Listen, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know who it was. I just heard it, and my mind was absolutely blown. And then from that day, my life changed. And the obsession, I would say addiction, took over.
From that, you were also involved in body popping.
Yeah, man.
And you frequented Covent Garden.
Covent Garden
as well.
Yeah, we used to just go down and hang out. I wasn't like the best breakdancer or anything like that. I could do a little bit of the locking and the wave. You know, we used to have a bit of lino. You know what I mean? We used to go to the next estate down from us, get the lino out and start battling people and all this type of shit. We weren't necessarily that good, but we didn't. You know what I mean? We didn't care. No one knew what they were doing at that time. It was so fresh and so new. And then we got into the graffiti. You know what I mean? It was the 5 pillars, or was it the 4 pillars of hip hop, right? The DJ, the MC, the dance, the break dancing, and graffiti.
I always add beatboxing in there.
And beatboxing as well. We all had So, yeah, man, it was an obsession, and there was all these different things to it that if you had a crew of friends You know, one wanted to do the beatbox, one wanted to be a DJ, one wanted to be a rapper. We all wanted to be dancers. It was amazing.
Me and Merlin were partners at one point with Total Control Rappers. So we didn't have equipment. We didn't have money to buy equipment. So I would beatbox, he would rap, and that was our instrumentation.
Yeah.
So we actually learned to put like 6, 7 different sounds into one place and do it all at the same time. And it was incredible.
Well, the thing is, right, when you've got no money, it forces your hand to be creative, right? And that's what hip hop was born out of. Is like no one had money to buy instruments, so somehow the record became, the turntable became the first real instrument, then the sampler. So we were just creative, man. Like I said to you, I had a digital delay that I had somehow managed to make into a sampler. My first, before the 4-track, I just had a double tape cassette. I used to do overdubs. You know what I mean? I don't even know how that worked, but it worked.
You say you didn't have instruments and everything, but you were a drummer as well.
I was a drummer in school. So when I got to high school, this is when they used to have first year, second year, third year, fourth. I don't know about this year 5, 6, 7, all that malarkey now. But the first year is when you're 11, is it? 11, 12? And they had cues, like they had drums, guitar, saxophone, piano, da-da-da-da. And whatever instrument you was interested in playing, you had to go in that cue. And I remember Darkus went into saxophone for some reason. I went straight to the drums because hardly anyone was in the drums queue. So I learned drums from an early age. I mean, I was always getting in trouble for banging on tables and all this type of shit. So beats were always a thing to me. So, I took drumming lessons every week for like 4 or 5 years. So I got decent. I was in the school band. We used to play like swing, jazz, all that kind of shit. I could never read the drum music though. But I used to listen and then figure it out and then play by ear. So that's what was my first, that was my first love as an instrument, and obviously making beats.
So could you read other music?
No.
So everything you did was just
by ear.
Instinct.
Yeah. Like, I fucked about violin for a few years.
I had a person, this Chinese lady that used to live downstairs to where I was living in New Cross, and she used to play the violin.
Yeah.
And I used to try and get her upstairs to play some violins because I had my studio in my flat, and we were all friends. Everyone in the block was friends. And I got her there, and she's like, if you can't write it down, then I can't perform it. And I'm like, listen to what I'm doing.
Right.
And she's like, no, I need it written down.
Yeah.
So I find that kind of like,
that's weird to me.
It's weird because music is supposed to be.
Well, the funny thing is, right, and this is later down the line, I was actually working with an orchestra, and I thought I sampled Vivaldi's Four Seasons, right? There's about 20 of them, 30 of them, and I thought they could just vibe it, just go on, just do it, just play it. They were like, no, man, we got to write it all out. I was like, what? You can't just play by ear? They were like, nah.
That's crazy. I just find that defeatist.
Yeah, so, yeah. I mean, I never learned to read music.
Imagine how many job opportunities come that you're never going to get because someone can't write it.
The best musicians I've ever worked with all can just vibe. Play the beat and they're just like, right, cool. Or whatever they're, you know what I mean? They just vibe it, man, just from here.
When we were speaking, you said to me that there was a certain group that became the catalyst for you to set up your studio. So who is that group?
Stereo MCs.
There you go.
Yeah. So basically, the studio we were working in, G Street, the Stereo MCs were signed to the same label. And they were actually quite big at the time. But anyway, cut long story short, they always had an amazing little studio at their place. And I was thinking, shit, man, I want a studio. I have no idea how to use none of the gear. So G Street they were selling off their studio just to get all the new stuff in, and I bought it. And like I said to you, I had literally no idea how to use any of the gear. So I got it home, set it up, and it sat there for like maybe 2 years without me doing anything, because I had no idea how to use the sampler, no idea how to use the desk, no idea how to set up a mic, none of that shit. So actually, I've still got the NS10s. I still use them to this day. And I actually know my way around the studio a little bit now, so...
Only 40 years?
Yeah, it only took me 40 years to be able to mic up a mic and set up some speakers.
What was it about the stereo MC situation that made you think, yo, I need a studio in my house?
Well,
Because back then, not many people had studios.
no one, no, because it was a lot of money, man. It was a lot of money. And I remember we might have gone to their DJ at the time, Cesare. He was a brilliant DJ and a great producer as well. And he just had a little setup at home, as far as I can remember. And I always just wanted that. I just wanted something at home. I mean, he didn't have a laptop them times or nothing. I had to bought big 2-inch reels, all this type of shit. Like I said to you, I bought all this gear and I had no idea how to use it. And there's no YouTube. You can't just go, how do I do this? So you have to either figure it out or not.
Why didn't you just ask stereo MCs? Because they were always trying to help people.
No, they were brilliant, but I don't know why I didn't ask them. Because I think at the time we were always going to the studio anyway. So we were just getting on doing our thing anyway.
So it didn't hinder you that you didn't know?
Nah. I just look at it, yeah, and then go back out. You know what I mean?
So you were a geek with equipment right from the get-go. Everything. You found a way.
Yeah, I wouldn't say geek because I didn't know how to use fuck all.
You were a geek in buying it.
Yeah, I used to buy stuff that looked good. Like, the reason I bought the 808 is because that record Planet Rock, right, by African Battle the Soul Solid Force.
Never heard it.
Yeah, right. Another record that changed my life, right? I found out that they used an 808 drum machine because I was thinking, how did that sound of those drums? Boom, boom, boom. I was like, what is that? I found out it was an 808 drum machine. So when I saw one, do I know how to use it? No. I just fucking bought it anyway. And then I bought some mad synth. I don't know, none of this shit works, but kind of worked it out enough to be able to get something out of it. So I wasn't really a geek and I hated to read manuals. The manuals we used to get back in the day were like this. And it was like Shakespeare wrote it. It was gobbledygook to me. So I would just get it out and just tap things, press things, just see what happens, man. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of how I learned to produce.
I went looking for the 808, couldn't find one. So I bought a 909.
Yeah.
And all I did was I got a friend who's got an 808 to sample the bass drum.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when you could go really low.
Yeah, yeah, because you could tune it.
Yeah. So I got him to sample that at different frequencies. And then I just used that as samples every time, just put that in.
Yeah.
That's
And people think 808 is some new thing. That's been around donkey's years, man. Do you know what I mean? And that sound has never gone out of fashion. It's probably being used more now than it was back then.
Let's move on to Outlaw Posse. First thing is, obviously, you've already told us that Bello went to school with you.
Yeah.
And, you know, you built up a friendship. You
Yeah.
realized he's on the same path as you, which not everyone else is on. So how instant was that?
So Bello actually went to a school called Christopher Wren. So
he wasn't at the same school?
No. He started off at a school called Christopher Wren, which was a school in White City, right? Who were the arch nemesis of Henry Compton. But they were like a proper bad man school. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And he came to Henry Compton, I think, in the second year. And he was sitting right next to me. We were in the same class. And he spent a lot of time in America because his brother lived over there. So he learned how to rap in America. No one else in the school could rap. And by this time, I'd already bought my 2 turntables and been, you know, trying to emulate whoever was out at the time, like G-Day, Jazzy Jeff, African Bambaataa, Grandmaster Flash, all them guys. So I was already doing my thing. And then we just kind of clicked. We clicked. And he could rap, I could DJ. So we was like, we just used to go to my house. I'll be on the decks. He'd be rapping. And that's kind of how it took off. And then once I learned figured out how to record it, that's when we first, you know, we started making demos and shit. But we just kind of clicked naturally. We're both hip-hop lunatics.
So I'm guessing that when you started doing that, it was just literally for the fun.
It's for the fun, yes, completely. We didn't think about money or fame or...
I think even as artists, when we were trying to make our music and make it public and whatever, even then we weren't thinking about money.
Even with the record deal, we didn't get no money for the record deal. We just had a company that was willing to put our music out and would let us do what we wanted in the studio. And that was it. We never had no A&R, nothing like that, or anyone looking over our shoulder. They just go, right, you got the studio for a week, do your thing.
So at what point did you kind of go, okay, like, we got something here, and we can actually make this happen? Did you ever do that,
Do you know
or
what?
was it just pure accident that got you in the situation?
I think after the first record we made, which we was kind of winging it in the studio anyway, and they put it out, and then I saw we had a review in Black Echoes, and I was like, oh shit, someone's actually written about us. People know who we are, kind of thing. But I still didn't think, oh yeah, we're onto something. We're gonna be huge. No, it was just like, wow, we were just so gassed. We were just happy that someone's written something nice about us, and the fact we was even in a music press in the first place blew our minds.
I'm guessing the sales figures didn't matter to you. You were just happy that people were talking.
I mean, it was different back then. We never had no idea really how much records we sold or anything like that. Didn't care. Yeah, I mean, we ended up that becoming our full-time job was making music, and we got a publishing deal. I remember our first publishing deal. I think we were young, man. We were about 18, 19. We got like 70 grand from. Who did we get money from? It was I can't remember the name of the publisher. But anyway, needless to say, right, Bello, we went and put a deposit on a flat. I just went and spunked it all. I bought 2 cars. I was like going on holidays here and there. And
70 grand back then was
a lot. So we probably had 35 grand each. I mean, that was that was a lot of money.
It's equivalent to probably $250,000 now.
God knows. It felt like it.
Yeah.
It felt like it. I was living life. I was still living at my mum's. You know what I'm saying?
And this is 1988.
This is probably, no, we probably got it a little after that. So,
with the album.
Yeah, it wasn't too, I mean, I was 18, 19, 20, one of them ages. Just living life, man. Not giving a fuck. You know what I'm saying? In hindsight, I would have probably done what Bello did and bought a flat, but I was having too much fun, man. I was like, what am I buying a flat for? You know what I mean? Yeah, I was living at home, man. I had no worries. I didn't want that albatross of a fucking mortgage and all this type of shit. I was just living life, man.
I was listening to some of your records from the early days, and like one of the first things that struck me, for example, there's a track that you done called Enforced a Positive.
Yeah.
Right? So, remember Master Race? I got to pick up the mic.
I got to, of course, that was a hard tune.
Right. So, that's what Bello's flow reminded me of in that. I don't know if you picked up on that.
Yeah, so like I said to you, Bello's influences were from the American MCs because he spent a lot of time out there. And that's all we used to listen to was American rap. There wasn't really hardly any UK rap at the time. And whoever was out at that time, you're talking about 88, 89.
There was only really Duke, Hijack,
they all
Merlin.
They all rapped in American accent. Everyone was doing it. There was no... That because all the people that we listened to were Americans, so that's just how we done it.
But it was good influences to pick up from, because the ones I was hearing was YZ, Master Race, Big Daddy Kane.
All that shit. Actually, our favourite band at the time was Ultramagnetic.
Oh, my favourite too. Sorry, bro.
Critical Beatdown.
Magnetic. I have to do it every time someone mentions the name.
Magnetic. So we were like super fans of Ultra, and we actually managed to support them at Camden Lock, which I was
that notorious one?
Yeah.
89.
Yeah, there.
Woo.
I mean, when we got asked to do that, I was just like, whoa, okay. And we also EPMD. We were massive fans of EPMD, and I used to be Eric Sermon, he used to be Paris Smith, and we knew all the rhymes, man.
I was actually going to say, there is one track, and I don't remember the title. I remember when I heard it, and I was picking up PMD vibes.
Cashing Large Checks. It was that one. Cashing large checks. Cashing large checks. We weren't, though. We weren't cashing.
What was it? Cashing dole checks.
Yeah, we weren't even that, man. We weren't cashing no checks.
Oh, okay.
I managed to avoid the dole somehow, but yeah, man. When I'm thinking about it, it was innocent times and brilliant times because we were just doing it for love and passion. It weren't about money or fame or any of that shit. We were just living the dream, man.
I know you had 2 albums, but overall, how many singles as Outlaw Posse?
As Outlaw Posse, I can't remember. We had a few, man, because I think we actually dented the chart in the UK. We might have gone top 75 with couple of them, allegedly. And we went to America quite a few times, so our music came out over there. We had quite a few singles, when I think about it. I can't remember exactly how many, but we had 2 albums and a bunch of singles, man. And we shot quite a few videos as well, which was kind of unheard of back then. We shot 1 in Brazil, 1 in New York, and a couple in the UK. So we thought, what? You know what I mean? And we were going on tours, all this type of shit. It was a big deal. We bucked up with you in Amsterdam.
Yeah,
we discussed earlier.
Milky Way, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that.
So we got to travel the world, man.
I feel like that was a really positive time for UK hip hop. It was starting to get...
It was starting to build. It was starting to build. It was starting to gain momentum. And we were starting to get a little bit of respect. But we still hadn't had what you could call the UK British sound yet. We had our sound, but it wasn't until later down the line when everyone started using the UK accent fully. You know what I mean? I think the first record I heard was
London Posse.
London Posse in about...
Yeah, but Demons were doing it as well.
Demons were doing it as well.
Demons had a little American twang to it, but quite often you would hear the UK in there.
Yeah. So I remember when I first heard a proper English accent rapping throughout the whole... I was like, that sounds odd, man. It sounded weird, because you've never heard it before. It's normal.
Yeah, but as well, you said, you come from the sound culture system.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Right? So... when you listen to people like Tipper Irie, Smiley Culture, all of them,
that's what we grew up on.
Yeah, but they were doing the UK accent, so it was always
yeah, but there was a mixture of Yardie and UK. Like for example, Police Officer.
Yeah.
When he went from Cockney to Jamaican. I mean, that was fucking brilliant.
It was amazing.
It was unbelievable.
If hip hop was born in the UK.
Oh yeah.
Then my guess is the Americans would be trying to sound like us because that's the influence.
Yeah.
We didn't know anything else. We didn't have anyone else because even though we were going to the sound clashes and whatever, we were seeing that as a different entity.
I mean, that only came later with the whole thing like, oh, he sounds American. But one of the most revered group, as we know, Comanche Sly from Hijack. He was thick American accent. You know what I mean?
But it worked though.
No, it worked. It worked because at the time, that's what we were used to hearing, and that's kind of what we used to emulate. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it is what it is, man. But now it's like an English MC wouldn't dream of rapping in an American accent. I mean, it doesn't make sense anyway now because we have our own sound. I think it first came about with garage, innit? That's when the MCs started to transition. Well, garage was UK, homegrown.
Did you ever, as a producer, kind of tell Bello all these things when you were doing the first singles and albums? Like, kind of, did you ever stop to think, yo, do it in your own accent?
No.
So why not?
Because it didn't cross my mind. Because all we used to listen to was American rap. So that's who we kind of looked to for inspiration. There was no one really.
And like you said, we didn't have YouTube and stuff. So.
No, we didn't have YouTube. And the scene was quite small still. It was still, you know what I mean?
Hey,
and he sounded good, so that was good enough for me, do you know what I mean?
But for a scene that was small, the impact that we were making around Europe, everywhere was amazing.
The impact was crazy. Like I said, we was in our own little bubble, man, and we managed to have. To me, we had success, and when I say success, we could eat, we could buy some garms, and we were traveling the world. We done tours with like Queen Latifah, KRS-One. We done shows with
Brand New Heavies.
Brand New Heavies we went on tour with. Arrested Development. You know what I mean? We were traveling around Europe.
Yeah, that Arrested Development tour, or was it the Brand New Heavies one? Because I remember, I think I was either speaking to you or to Bello when you were talking about a live band.
Yeah, so that was actually Bello's idea, to use a live band. And I remember him saying to me, oh, I think we should get a band. I was like, band? I am the fucking band. Because the DJ was the band, right? And bands were like for suckers.
But look how ahead of his time.
No, exactly. He was way ahead of his time. And I was just like, band? That's not hip hop, man. How are they going to make the beats sound? But anyway, you know, I kind of went with it. And actually, on our second album, a lot of it was live. So he was kind of ahead of his time with all that shit.
We spoke about your name spelling being incorrect and everything. So you done a record called With a K to clarify that. But there was also another name change. So at first, I remember seeing you as Outlaw Posse.
Yeah.
And then it became Brothers Like Outlaw.
Yeah.
Why the change? And how did that affect
So
everything?
because we were being released in America, there was already a group over there, apparently, called Outlaw Posse, who I've never heard of. No one to this day can show me who they are. But anyway, so there was a band there called Outlaw Posse, so we had to change our name. And then Bello was like, how about Brothers Like Outlaw? I was like, I was pissed off we had to change it because we'd already kind of established ourselves. And that's why we had to change it. So we became Brothers Like Outlaw.
So how did that affect everything?
It didn't.
So you didn't lose fans over it?
Nah.
Okay.
Nah. Not as far as I knew. Nah.
Can we just go back a second and just clarify who you were signed to when you did the Outlaw albums? Because you did 2 albums. You did My Afro's on Fire, and then you also did...
The Oneness of Two Minds in Unison.
In Unison, yeah.
And there was a third album that never came out.
Okay, we'll come to that in a second. But who were you signed
So
to?
we were signed to G Street Records initially. And for the second album, we were still signed to G Street Records, but they had a distribution deal or became a subsidiary of Island Records. So, yeah, that was that.
So was that anything to do with your connection with Darkest?
None whatsoever.
Just pure coincidence?
Just pure coincidence.
And at the time, I remember seeing, because we used to kind of like troll through TV, whatever we could get. Yeah, and I remember seeing Demon Boys on Ensign Radio, Night Network, whichever one it was.
Night Network.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Right. And I think that was a Westwood show, which was Night Network or whatever it was. And then I saw Merlin there as well. And I'm pretty sure I've seen you on TV a couple of times as well. And one of them, if I remember, there was MTV Europe.
Yeah, we done that. Oh, there was Yo MTV we did.
Yo MTV.
With Fab Five.
Okay,
Freddy.
I don't think I saw that one. Right? And then there was another one which was Dance Days. That I remember seeing. Yeah. So to me, like all these things coming together gave me hope as a UK artist, knowing that potentially it can happen.
Yeah.
You know, obviously my path was different to yours because I chose to go the independent route. So my question to you, you were doing all these things and whatever, and earlier you were saying about you being a hustler. So why did you never set yourself up with an independent label and do it yourself?
Do you know what? It never even crossed my mind. And listen, mate, what you did was no one ever did that. No one had the means to do that.
I didn't have the means.
Yeah, but all the know-how to even think on them kind of levels. You know what I mean? And yeah, it just wasn't a thing at the time. To be an independent artist and press up your own vinyls and all that shit back then, that wasn't even like a thought. You know what I mean? I mean, we were lucky. We signed to a rap label who just set up at the time. So we had an outlet and we didn't have to worry about all that shit. So all the heavy lifting was done by the label. We just had to go in the studio, make the record and go, yeah, put it out. We didn't give a shit about accounts and getting money and all this kind of stuff. We were doing shows.
I guess you guys were in a fortunate position because when I speak to so many other groups, they never saw any money.
Nah.
Whereas you got your advance. You were
yeah, we got some publishing money. Yeah, and we lived off that. And I don't ever remember getting any money for shows. Not physically in my hand.
What, not even at Milky Way?
Oh yeah, Norville paid us.
Yeah, I was going to say, Norville always paid.
Yeah.
Big up Norville.
Yeah, big up Norville. Big up Norville. So tell a lie, we did used to get money here and there. But the reason why I can't remember is because money was not at the forefront of my mind. If I'm on a stage somewhere in the world doing what I love, I didn't care if I got paid or not. As long as my belly was full and I had some new crepes on, I was good. And I could buy some vinyl. That was it.
As Outlaw Posse,
Yeah.
What was the highlight for you, the biggest highlight?
Biggest highlight.
What was the moment when you felt like, yo, everything's going to change now?
There was never a moment where I thought everything's going to change now. Because we're in the moment. You know what I mean? So you're just kind of doing your thing. But probably when we shot our first video in New York City, the home of rap, that's when I was like, fuck yeah. You know what I mean? And we were going to the studio over there. While we were there, we went to Calliope studio. And it's the same studio, because I remember reading it on the back of records by Ultramagnetic MCs, Tribe Quest, all these acts that I was huge fans of, they all recorded in that studio. So when we went to America and we shot a video on the streets of New York, are you fucking, come on, man. We were like, what? Like a proper camera crew, do you know what I mean? Actors and all this type of shit. That's probably when I thought, okay, maybe we're onto something here. But even then, it's only because I'm reflecting. I think even at the time, it was a big deal, but we were just doing our thing. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like, oh yeah, we smashed it now. It was never that. We were just happy just to be fucking making hip hop.
You know, sometimes I meet people and you can see the egos got to them and whatever. I never sensed that with you guys. You know what I mean?
Nah, we never had egos, man.
And I think that's partly because your intentions were just to make good music.
Yeah, we just love making music. That was it. And whatever we got out of it, we got out of it. But the aim was never fame. The aim was never money. None of that shit. We used to make records that we wanted to hear ourselves. That was it. We were our own biggest fans. We didn't care what everyone else was doing.
When you were in the studio, did Bello have any input in the production, or was it just 100% you?
Not really. He used to just let me do my thing. You know, I never used to tell him how to rap, and he never used to tell me how to make beats. He just let me get on with it. Sometimes he'd be like, oh shit, that's dope, or this or that. More by the second album, when he wanted to introduce some live musicianship, we kind of had a little bit of like, I was a little bit like, oh, fuck the band kind of shit. I was into my samples and the scratching and all that kind of crap. But I'm glad he kind of pushed it, because it just made us that little bit more different again. And it was great to work with live musicians. But yeah, he kind of just let me get on with it.
And you also rapped?
Yeah, I did.
All right.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I could rap the same way Dr. Dre can rap, the same way Kanye West can rap. We were producers and DJs, right? I was always listening to rap music and I used to rap along to the raps, and I was always writing poetry when I was a kid. But DJing was my thing. And even though I could rap, I never wanted to be a rapper. I think I probably did 1 or 2 verses on the albums, but that was, we done one with MCM from Caveman. I rapped a verse, Bello rapped a verse. But that was probably about it. I used to do some ad-libs. I was happy. But yeah, I never wanted to be a rapper. I never wanted to be up front. I was obsessed with DJing and scratching. That was my thing. I'll just be in my house, practicing by myself. While everyone was out on the streets, I was cutting and scratching.
But you weren't a turntablist?
I was a turntablist.
As in spinning on you?
Oh no, none of that shit. I was more technical, like everything had to be on time. But I couldn't do none of the tricks and shit. Because I was a club DJ that could cut and scratch and mix. That was my thing. Cut and scratch and mix it. I don't do no fucking tricks. Spit it, you know what I mean, doing it with my mouth and all that type of shit.
Right.
My ear was more technical and it was about precision and timing. You know, all them dudes go, that just sounded like noise to me. I was never into that. I mean, it looked good, but if you were listening to it on a cassette or on the radio, it didn't really translate when you can't see them doing it. Do you know what I mean? So I was never really that bothered about all that.
You know what? It's just dawned on me that you are quite possibly the most successful artist from our generation of UK hip hop. Even though most of your fame and whatever came from
different,
outside
of hip.
But it's just dawned on me.
But thank you very much. I would say this though. I've never set out to make a pop record, and I don't think I've ever made a pop record, because if you listen to every record I've ever made that's been successful, if you take the band off it, if you take whoever's singing on it off,
it was just what you were doing.
It's a hip hop instrumental.
So all of us producers, we probably missed the trick. We could have got singers on there. We could have. Oh man.
You know what though, man? It's like certain stars align, things happen, and You know what I mean? I can't explain it, I went from Outlaw Posse to All Saints to working with an array of all different artists. It's just, I learnt my trade by making hip hop records, and everything I've ever made was based on how I learnt to make hip hop records. Except I got better at producing, but it was always hip hop.
But I also think there's a big factor that plays in all of this, is the fact that you were ready to accept anything that was aligning. You weren't pushing it away like most of us.
No, man, because I don't forget, I grew up in my father's Jamaican, my mother's English, right? So the record collection was eclectic, from the Beatles and the Rolling Stones to Just Shaka, Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, and all the rest of it. So my music that I was exposed to from my mother to my father were quite different. Do you know what I mean? So you could say I had the best of both worlds in terms of musical upbringing. I listened to everything. Do you know what I mean? And I tried to play every instrument. So I was always intrigued with sound. So nothing was off limits. Do you know what I'm saying? And when I first heard De La Soul and they was going outside of James Brown, I was like, whoa, okay. Now that's what's up. Because people were calling them hippies at the time because everyone was sampling James Brown. Everybody. And funk. And they were sampling like old pop records and like some weird 70s shit.
I think the album cover also made it look a bit hippie-fied.
Yeah, because it was like the Daisy Age and all that shit. But it was the press that gave them that. The hippies, they never would. They've always said they were never trying to be hippies or anything like that. It was just whatever. But anyway, their album blew my fucking mind. The production on it, Prince Paul was a genius, and the records that he chose to sample. So when I heard that, I was like, because our first record we produced was James Brown. It was a James Brown sample. But when I heard that album, I was like, oh, yeah. So then my record collection started to change in terms of what I used to go out and physically, when I used to go digging in the crates, a lot of it was all kinds of different shit. And also my record collection at home from my parents was all mixed up and mad.
I mean, as a fellow producer, the kind of things that I was looking for was even nursery rhyme records, even everything.
Oh, yeah. So,
a train chugging along.
Yeah, no, 100%. So one of the first albums I learned to cut and scratch with and try and make a beat out of was fucking Jungle Book. I had that album, right? And there was a part where the elephants used to talk or some shit, and I was cutting that up. And yeah, because at the time as well, you know, a lot of DJs were using bits of film in the cutting and scratching and live mixtapes and all that kind of stuff. So then it started to just open up your mind in terms of where you could draw samples from and sounds. So that just expanded my whole. There's life after James Brown samples. They were all been rinsed. Do you know what I mean? So then I wasn't scared to sample other shit.
I think that's what made hip hop really interesting because, like, you know, when you do, say, for example, when you use an electric guitar and you're doing rock music, it can all end up to the untrained ear sounding like it's the same instrument and it's doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Whereas with hip hop, influences come from everywhere. I remember jumping in front of cars and recording them screeching, you know, just so I can get a screech without the music in the background.
Listen, I hear music and everything. Even when I turn right and the car and the thing goes kick, 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 kick.
Take it.
My brain starts going kick, 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 dun, dun, kick, dun, kick. There's music, the light switch, I'll go kick, 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 go, kick, go, kick, go, kick, go, kick. There's beats. Yeah, I hear music everywhere, man.
What made you different to all the other producers? Because obviously you got opportunities a lot of them never got. I mean, Dexter's another one who's from Brotherhood. He worked with.
Yeah, well, do you know what it is? Well. It's like I said to you, it's stars aligning, right place, right time. I think.
And none of this was set up by Dark as being an island.
Nothing to do.
Why didn't he kind of go, yo?
You know what? Me and Dark are just friends. You know what I mean?
But you would have thought being friends, he would have kind of opened
but we never really went down the road of like working with each other. We've done a couple of little things here and there, and actually he wanted to sign me at one point. But me, in hindsight, again, looking back, I should have gone with him rather than the label I went with at the time.
Which one?
But because we
G
were,
Street.
but yeah, no, I actually done a deal with Sony.
Okay, we'll come to that.
Yeah. But anyway, point is, we're mates and we just talk about shit outside of music. You know what I mean? We never really cross-contaminated.
So, the question that a couple of friends have said I need to ask you is, what happened to Outlaw?
Nothing, really. So basically what happened was, we done the 2 albums.
A third one in the pipeline.
We were working on a third one. I think we got a little bit disillusioned, because I think by the time we done the second album, that's when we started to go, hold on a sec, how come we still broke? that's
I tell you how come you're broke, because you bought 2 cars and loads of
no,
clothes.
100%. 100%. I had no idea what I was fucking doing. But then, you start questioning, like, actually, this is our job now. And we're not really seeing no money. And, I don't want to start pointing fingers and all that shit. And I think probably, me and Bello might have had a few minor disagreements, but we didn't never fell out. And I think our time with G Street kind of naturally came to an end. But we'd already recorded a third album that kind of, nothing happened. We just kind of went our separate ways. And there was never any animosity. We still speak to this day. And it kind of just
Fizzled out.
Yeah, there was no particular reason. I think as well, I started at this time, because of the success of the 2 albums that we had done, I started to get a lot of work coming in to do remixes and all that kind of shit. So I was quite happy doing that. And then Bello, as you know, went on to do that KLF song, which went to #1 in America, was number 1 everywhere, which was, again, a brave thing to do at the time.
But also, the fact that both of you had your individual successes just shows what a powerhouse you two were.
Yeah, we were just, listen, man, he loved rapping, I loved DJing and making beats. So that's what we continued doing. So it wasn't like Outlaw Posse just stopped and then we was just like, fuck each other and then just went off. It just kind of, our partnership with G Street kind of ran its course, and we wanted to explore different things.
Putting Bello aside now,
Yeah.
it's like, obviously, because I hope one day we'll get him in here and we'll do an interview with him. But I want to know from you what it's like to be a pioneer, because I feel you're a pioneer. And I feel you're also one of these guys that maybe sometimes within our scene gets overlooked.
First of all, thank you for calling me a pioneer. But I think I called you that the other day, because how you went about being an independent artist at the time, when being an independent artist was an impossible task in most people's minds. You just didn't know how you even went about doing that, right? So when you're doing pioneering shit, you don't even know that you're doing it at the time, because you're just doing it, right?
Yep.
And you have no idea why, how, or you don't think of it. You're just carving out your own path. This is what I want to do. This is how I'm going to do it. That's kind of it.
Like you said, when you have nothing, you've got to find a way.
Yeah.
And in everything we do as artists, we just have to find a way. Anybody who follows the formulas, I just feel like they've got limited time, even if they're successful.
Exactly. And although I started out in rap, I wasn't against working with diverse, different types of artists and all that kind of shit. Like I said to you, I come from a mixed background, so my music collection was always eclectic. So I was always open to all kinds of shit. Like I said to you, I played recorder, like everyone did in school, violin, piano, guitar. I was never a master of any of them. The only thing I was good on was drums. But it's all about experimenting, getting out of your comfort zone, and not being scared to do shit that other people are scared to do. You know what I mean? Because if we had this conversation earlier about getting success and then being called a sellout, it's like, how dumb is that though? Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I remember when Bello done that KLF tune, which was a dance tune. It was like, if you listen to hip hop, you couldn't listen to dance music or admit that you listen to house music or any of that shit. Secretly, I had a massive dance and house collection, and I used to DJ in a couple of those big fields and all that type of shit. Do you know what I mean? But I had to kind of keep that. I kind of kept that on the DL.
But you know what? In the background, there was people like us who, even if we didn't buy dance records and we didn't kind of enjoy the records because it wasn't our thing, and it wasn't our thing. We weren't being hard-headed, and,
No.
right? It wasn't where our ears gravitated to. However, when we see like Bello, it's like MC Merlin.
Yeah.
Look at MC Merlin. He done Who's in the House.
Yeah. Even there was a hip house.
I couldn't be happier for
Yeah, there was
somebody
that
making-
whole hip house
Because
thing.
remember, me and Merlin were partners. So to see that happening, I was like, yo, wicked. Good for him. You know what I mean? And it was the same I saw with Bello, with the KLF thing.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised when Bello done it, because it was so different at that time, and to do something like that could be career suicide at that moment in time. Like if you're doing hip hop, that was it. You couldn't do anything else. You know what I mean? Because you just get seen as a sellout, or what the fuck's he doing, or this kind of shit. But we was always open-minded to different angles and different looks.
But it's also having the confidence to know you can come back from that.
It's having the balls, man, to fucking dare to be different.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's one thing that I was never scared of, is doing my own thing.
Right, and I'm going to now read off a list of certain names, right? Because you, after the Outlaw thing, you went on to do remixes and production for a whole bunch of other people. And the list I've got here, and I know you can add 100 different names to it too. I've got Misha Paris, I've got Jesse J, Rod Stewart, Jamie Callum, Damage, Liberty X, All Saints. You got all of these. And none of them were...
actually, all the ones you read there, I've either got a platinum disc or a gold disc. And there's hundreds of others outside of that.
Right, so I'm guessing you must have done close to 500 to 1,000 records.
Probably. I mean, actually, I looked at my discography the other day, which is probably a bit old now, but there was like 300 on there. And there's way more than that. But that's what's,
What an achievement, though. Sorry, I go clap. So what an achievement.
A lot of the time, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I just learned by doing it. There's no book or no, you know what I mean? There was no online shit.
Was there any backlash from the hip-hop community at all because you started doing the stuff with All Saints, or were people just generally happy?
No, because I was...
on the silent.
I wasn't even in the hip-hop community like that. Although I was part of the community in terms of, hip-hop was just my thing, man. I loved it. I still do love it. And I never attached myself to any particular group or whatever. And there was no online thing then. So I wasn't getting messages saying, go fuck yourself, man. What are you doing this for? You're a sellout. There was none of that. But at the same time, there was kind of silence. Do you know what I mean? It was no, like, that geezer from Outlaw Posse.
You know what I think it is? I don't think it was any bad mind from most of the people.
No.
I think it's just a case of they think you're cool now, you're safe, you're sorted in your life.
Yeah.
They want to put their support.
I didn't feel a backlash necessarily. But I think, by the time I had massive success with All Saints, I think that was probably like 5 years after the last Outlaw record anyway. So people probably thought I just rode off into the distance and weren't doing shit. But I was always working. I just went back to DJing, man. I was DJing in clubs and shit and just honing my skills on production.
When you're talking, I'm hearing someone who was just putting his curiosity to the test. So how much did curiosity have a role to play in where you ended up?
Do you know, it was probably more other people's curiosity. Like, what would happen if we got KGee to produce this record or remix this record? I mean, when I got the call for All Saints, they weren't All Saints at the time. They were just some up-and-coming girl band. I was managed by Meg Matthews, who famously went on to marry Noel Gallagher from Oasis. But anyway, that's a little side note. But yeah, she said there's these girls called All Saints from Ladbroke Grove, and they're looking for some tracks. What are you saying? I was like, cool. Went down there to meet them. And I'd already been making hip-hop tracks. I never stopped. When Outlaw Posse kind of disbanded, I was always producing, making tracks, backing track after backing track after backing track. So I just went down there with a CD full of tracks that were supposed to be for rappers. I gave it to them, and I keep saying this, the rest is history. They went off, they chose one of the tracks that they wanted to write something to, and that became their breakout single. I think went to number 4. So that was my first massive. That's when I was like, oh shit, okay, you know what I mean? Now I've arrived. Because I had a smash bona fide hit record around the world.
Do you think if you got, say, for example, a female rapper, do you think that would have changed anything?
Do you know what? Yeah, but like you say, I didn't try and go into. I didn't know nothing about All Saints. I didn't know what genre they were, who they were, what they were doing. I just went there with the same tracks I would turn up to meet you with, or Bello, or whoever.
Yeah, but the point I'm making is, like, was it too male dominated in hip hop? Where do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So if you had a
there was a
female
lot.
rapper,
There was a lot of testosterone happening.
Yeah, so
And
if you had a female rapper, would that made a difference? Do you reckon? I'm just curious.
I don't know. I actually don't know.
Okay, I mean, it could be sonically. It wasn't.
Do you know what? Did I work with any female rappers? I don't think I did. You know. No, the opportunity never arose.
Okay. Well, you didn't need to after you joined up with All Saints, did you?
No, well, do you know what? That just took my career on another trajectory. I mean, you know, I was doing my thing before that. I mean, I was doing a lot of remixing at the time. But, yeah, obviously that went fucking bananas. Actually bananas.
Yeah, that's crazy. How did your life change from that moment?
It changed from not being able to get into certain places to having a red carpet. Not being able to get into the VIP to be able to get in the VIP. And now actually having some money.
And now you could buy 2 cars without worrying about where the third car's coming from.
Yeah, I miss it, mate. I did spunk a lot of money on stupid shit, I'm not going to lie. But at the same time, I was sensible. I was never too crazy with the money.
So you learned from the 75 or the 70 grand?
Well, no, not really. Not really. No, not really.
Okay.
Because I was having too much fun.
Okay.
So imagine, right, when I got my first, I mean, I already thought I was successful anyway. Well, what is success to anyone, really? There's levels, right? I didn't know what real success was, if you want to call it that, until the All Saints thing, where your life changes. Your actual life does change, whether you like it or not. It changes. You get, you know, different doors open, different opportunities arrive. So when I first got a shitload of money, first thing I did was go and spunk it. Well, I spent quite a bit on a new car. I've never driven a new car before that. And I already knew in my head what I wanted to get. So I bought a new car. I always wanted a massive TV. Silly things, silly boys' toys. And then I bought a massive TV. Then I bought the obligatory jewellery, a few bits here and there, which looking back now is fucking stupid, waste of money. But I'm young, I've got no responsibilities, and I've got some money. So all the things I could never afford growing up, I bought.
And hats off to you for that.
Yeah,
you know,
but I didn't, you know, but I also bought a flat and a house. So I didn't completely, I had a good financial guy around me who was like, mate, you need to fucking
slow down,
calm down a bit. Do you know what I mean? He goes, I remember him saying to me, invest in property and one day you will wake up and you'll be 40 and you'll look back and you go, what the fuck happened? And I was thinking to myself, mate, I'm like in my 20s, man. 40 seems like an impossibility. Do you know what I mean? At the time. But he said, trust me on this, you'll thank me. He's still in my account to this day. And I took his advice, bought some property, blah, blah. But I did spunk quite a fair bit as well.
We're all allowed to make mistakes.
No, 100%. I wouldn't even say it's a mistake. It was just like, I think this is why, you know, in hip-hop there's this whole thing with the jewellery and the cars and this and that. Is because you come from fuck all. So the minute you get some money, it's like, hey.
To be honest, I always look at that as more trappings than...
No, it is. I mean, like I said to you, I never went crazy. I just bought the things that I couldn't afford before. Like I always wanted to drive a new car. I always wanted a big TV. And that's kind of it. And I bought a few bits of jewellery and stupid shit.
You told me that you were already shopping the All Saints material. And it wasn't until the Spice Girls blew up that everyone started calling you back and going, we want to...
Yeah, so...
Tell us that story.
So I met the girls, I believe, in 94, right? They blew up in 97. I think the Spice Girls might have come out in 96. So when we first done a whole bunch of demos, because I Know Where It's At when I first met them, but that didn't come out until 1997, and that was recorded in 1994. So there's a 3-year gap. Is that 3 years? There was a 3-year gap before anything happened. We made loads of demos, went to probably every single label, and they was all like, nope, nope, nope. I mean, it's like 4 girls singing on hip hop. It weren't really happening at that time. And the Spice Girls came out, and I remember driving, and I seen this poster for Spice Girls, thinking, ew, that's a stupid name. Who the fuck are they? And I heard their song, What Do You Really, Really Want? I was like, oh my God. And then that's when the girl band fever, that's when you talk about stars aligning, right? So I think without the Spice Girls being so big at the time,
that would never happen.
It would never happen, right? So there and then, everyone was looking for the next Spice Girls or the antidote to the Spice Girls. And I think that's kind of a piece of the puzzle that got it to where it was going. Do you know what I mean? So everyone, you know, it's like when things become trends. It's like, oh, we got this one, now we need this one. So they were two opposites. I think All Saints were a bit cooler. You know, they were basically, you know, they wrote all their own songs. They were singing over cooler music. And they had Spice Girls who were kind of put together and were, you know, sweet pop princesses. And let's just say All Saints were kind of rock and roll, hip hop, fucking nut jobs.
Who first acknowledged them and contacted you guys and said, let's talk?
So after we'd done all these demos, man, we looked at every single record company, got turned down by everyone. And then I didn't really hear from them for a little while. We kind of got disillusioned and just went about our business. And then they had a manager called John Benson who absolutely loved what I did. I mean, I think they worked with a few different producers, but he was like, nah, that's, whoever did those beats, that's what we need. That's different. We need to be different. So by the time they got the deal with London Records, part of the reason why I got the gig was because John Benson was like, listen, because they wanted to get big time producers in to make the record. And he was like, listen, if this guy's not making the record, we're not doing the fucking deal. Simple as that. And then he called me. He was like, yo, KGee? I was like, yeah. He's like, did you produce this? I goes, yeah. He goes, right, we got a deal now. I want you in. And he had my back, and he had the vision to see what we created and back me. And that was kind of it.
Who was A&R in the project?
What's his name? Pete Tong.
Right. So I just want to say a massive big up to Pete Tong, because if it wasn't for Pete Tong, I'm not sure I would have been able to get into the studio to do Lyrical Maniac. Pete Tong used to come out to the events, saw me, came and talked to me, exchanged numbers, and he created an opportunity for me to get into the studio where they paid for the studio time in the beginning.
Go on, Pete.
Yeah. So again, you know, we have another connection there.
Yeah.
So big up Pete Tong.
Yeah.
Never forget you for that.
And he kind of...
And Stereo MCs as well help.
No, big up Stereo MCs. You know, legends in the game. You know what I mean? Still going strong, they're still touring. And, you know, again, they were doing something different as well. They were, you know, singing, rapping, the beats they used, the samples, all different.
But I just wanted to make sure that Pete Tong got a mention, basically, because he had his ear on
he had his ear to the ground, and he kind of trusted the process, man, because he wasn't over my shoulder going, oh, can you do this, can you do that? He was just like, do your thing, man.
And that's exactly what he done with me.
Yeah, do your thing.
So yeah, massive big up to Pete Tong.
Yeah, big up.
We know that the first album did extremely well. Okay, so...
Ridiculous.
Right, so can you give us a little bit of insight on that? Like even down to the how you went into the studio, did the recordings together, were you kind of controlling how they sang, what notes they hit, all that kind of stuff?
Not really. Well, how it worked was, again, like I said to you, I'd already made that that first album in particular. A lot of the tracks that I produced were tracks I already made for rappers, and I kind of adapted for them. So I would just play them beats. And normally Shaznay would say, oh, we like that one, we like that one. And then she'd go off and write top line to it. And she'd come back and play me what they'd recorded, and I was like, fuck. Like, if I wanted a song written over the beat, you've just written the perfect song over that track. So I didn't really have to guide them too much. Only like when after I got the demo, we went in the actual studio, you know, what do I know about vocal production at that time? Fuck all, really. I just know what sounds good. So I would say maybe do harmony here or do this or do that. But Shaznay, most of the time, kind of knew. Yeah, she knew how she wanted it. So she essentially done a lot of the, you know, got the other girls doing their thing and all that type of shit. And we worked closely together to get the sound.
5 million albums sold.
On the first one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does that feel? I mean, you've been doing all the Outlaw stuff.
Yeah.
And you didn't reach those heights. No. And then all of a sudden it's like, boom.
Listen, to reach those heights is, listen, like I said, right, I thought I'd done all right with Outlaw Posse. That was success to me. I mean, any level, like I said to you, it's like, what is success to you? You know what I mean? So this is another level of success, which is an anomaly. Did I say that right? It's not an everyday thing to have an album or body of work go that crazy around the world. Again, at the time, it was such a whirlwind that I never sat down and was like, oh, we just sold 5 million records. And I didn't really think of it at the time because I'm in the moment, you know what I mean? I think when I got the first platinum disc, I was like, yeah. But then it had 5 discs in it. And then there's ones from Australia, New Zealand, fucking Poland, France, America. You know what I mean? All this type of shit. So, yeah, I don't know how to answer that question because I don't know. I never sat down and went, woo, I just sold 5 million records.
So you never, for 1 second, just kind of went 5 million records?
No.
Never?
No.
So it was just on to the next project?
No, it's only probably when I started to get more discs. And then sometimes I'd sit down and go, all right, you've done all right, mate. Do you know what I mean? But that's on reflection, though. At the time, again, you're just doing what you do. I'm not thinking I'm doing anything extraordinary or super special. I'm just doing what I do, which is a normal thing to me. You know what I mean? I'm not going in to try and. I've never sat down and gone, today I'm going to make a #1 record. Today I'm going to make a pop smash. Never did that. I just went in the studio, and whatever felt good, that's what it is. That's what everyone hears. You know what I mean? I never tried to make a hit or tried to do this or tried to do that. I just did it. And what happens after that is what happens after that.
So many times we hear about one-hit wonders.
Yeah.
Right? And we hear about people basically making a record and then you don't hear from them again. Did you ever have any concerns about being that guy? Or
No.
You didn't?
No.
You were always confident that everything that you were doing was going to...
No, because every 100 records you make, maybe 10, if you're lucky, are successful. No one hears about the ones that never come out or are not successful. Adaka would say it himself. He's like, for every band or act I've had that's completely smashed it, there's 50 other ones that no one's ever heard of before that didn't make it out the gate or no one cared about or just didn't happen. Same with Pharrell, same with anyone. You could talk to any of them. They've had more failures than successes.
That's so important that you just got to keep going. Because
100%. Like I said to you, I never go in the studio trying to make a hit. If it becomes a hit, great. If it don't, whatever, man. I just, do you know what I mean? I did my thing.
I always kind of think to myself, the best winners it's the ones that lose and keep going.
Exactly. But I never see anything as a loss. I see it as a learning curve.
But humanity has a way of making you feel like...
Of course, but in order to succeed, you have to fail. And this is what I tell my students, right? You need to out-fail your competition, because the only way you're going to learn is to keep doing shit, keep failing until you get it right. You know what I mean? And that takes persistence and consistency.
Can I just say to every artist that's out there, what you just heard there is one of the biggest gems you're ever going to hear. So, you know, don't give up just because you failed this time and the next time and the next time, because you could just be on the, is it the precipice of,
Yeah.
you know, the success that's coming.
You're going to fail more times than you actually succeed. Like, you know.
And you don't have to succeed 100 times to get to where you want to be, like financially, in your life, happiness, everything.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that's some big advice right there.
No, exactly. I don't see anything as a failure. I see everything as a learning curve.
I think on your social media page, I noticed like some little mentions of All Saints recently. Why is that? Because you've been quiet about all those things for some time.
I mean, yeah, my personal page on Instagram is, all right, let me put it like this. I don't use my personal page a lot. I'm not really a social media guy. I don't really like all that shit. I mean, I know it's a necessary evil, right? But from what I hear and from what I understand, and people are always saying to me, or from like tell your story. I want to hear your story. So again, I've been doing a lot of reflecting lately and owning my past works and understanding how I got from here to here. And it's only now I'm like, fucking hell, you've done a lot of shit. You've done well. Like, you should start, or you should stop having imposter syndrome and start acknowledging your greatness. And I'll say that to anyone. So, you know, I always see people flossing online and mostly bollocks, right? But what I'm trying to do is empower people and inspire people. If I can do it, you can do it. I'm not nothing special in terms of upbringing or education or anything like that. I just followed my passion and, you know, loved what I did and just kept doing it until I got good at it. I didn't realise what I was doing at the time. Every time I didn't go out and I stayed in learning the MPC or scratching and cutting or learning how to put sounds together, I didn't know that I was honing my craft. I was just doing it. Do you know what I mean? So now I'm able to speak freely about my career. And from the responses I was starting to get, I thought, actually, this is doing some good, because people are like, oh man, you know what? This inspired me, that inspired me when you made this record. I love hearing the stories. So I've just started to put out, you know, a few things here and there. And I'm going to keep doing it because I think telling your story is important for the next generation as well.
But also, there was another reason why you started posting as well, basically because that album has never been on vinyl before.
Yeah, and that was the main thing as well, that album. And I didn't even get a copy. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I didn't even get a copy, yeah, but it was the first, I think it was the 30th anniversary or some shit, or 30-something anniversary. Yeah, so it was the first time it was ever been on vinyl, which I didn't even know. So I thought that was a poignant thing to post. So I just posted it. And then from that response, I thought, actually, you know what? People want to hear the stories before the glory.
I think those stories are so important because, you know, everyone seems to think that successful artists grow on trees.
Nah.
And they don't.
Listen, mate, it takes 10 years to become an overnight success.
You hear that?
You know what I mean? You know, true stars don't just come out of the blue. They're honing their craft for years before anyone hears of them. It's not instant coffee, Instagram shit.
How many of the All Saints fans recognize you as the Outlaw guy as well?
Good question. I'm not sure if many of them do, you know.
You're going to push that? Let them know.
Do you know what? Do you know what's funny? Saying that is that if you look at my page, I've got about 12 posts, and like there's one every 6 months or something like that. And but I'm gonna do some posts about Outlaw Posse because we have been recording some new songs, which we did a few years ago, and I've not done anything with it as yet. I'm just waiting for the right time to put it out. We kind of done it in COVID, so we've got a new album ready to go.
I just think for anyone who's a fan from the All Saints
Yeah,
days, and if the production is pretty much the same, they'd be interested
I
in what
think
you're
a few
doing.
of them. I think a few of them know.
When we were talking on the phone,
Yeah.
building up to doing this and everything, you said you did not want to be seen as the All Saints guy.
Yeah. So the context, right? So you know, like when, right? So you know, you just asked me, do the All Saints fan base know about Outlaw Posse? Or in fact, they probably don't know anything else I've done outside of All Saints, and All Saints doesn't really define me. You know what I mean? All Saints became a job in a way, but as a producer and everything else that I am, it doesn't define me as a person or a creative. As you probably know, I've just set up my own label, which is no big deal. Anyone can set up a fucking label. But what I don't want, which I've been told to do, is, oh, you should use the All Saints story, this, that, and the other, gives it a bit more kudos, or makes it more interesting. I'm like, no, I want people to like it because of what it is, not because of who I've worked with in the past. That's then, this is now. It's not that I'm ashamed of it or anything like that, but this is something else. And I don't need to mention All Saints to jump off the back of that for what I'm doing now. Because it's so different as well that it's not even in the same fucking ballpark, you know what I mean? And yeah, that was then, this is now, you know what I mean? I don't really want to cross-contaminate. People will find out, I don't really care, but I'm not going to be going, hey, you should listen to this because I did this. No one cares.
No, but I think people need to know what you've done before,
Yeah,
because
people,
we're talking about the building process.
I know. Yeah, I hear that, but I want it to have legs of its own first.
Yeah.
And then people find out down the line, boom, cool. Yeah. But I'm not using that as a crutch in any way.
No, it's just making them aware that you existed before that. It
no,
goes
listen,
back
man,
to that 10 years to...
No, of course, you know, people figure it out, man. They're not stupid. So I'll let them do it rather than me going...
You know, when I heard you were working with All Saints, right? Because I was in the studio one time with a certain group. When the group had changed hands, they became different people within the group, right? And at the same time, I think you basically started, I think it was about a year later that I started hearing that, okay, you're working with All Saints. And I started thinking, okay. And I started visualizing what you were going to be.
Right. Oh, yeah, because I was called the fifth All Saint.
This is what I imagined you as. Boney M. And I imagined you as the guy in the front with the girls at the back.
That's a fucking piss take. But...
No, but, you know, because when I heard you were doing the production, I thought you were going to be more up front because you're a vocalist as well.
Yeah, no, I wasn't in the group like that. No, especially not wearing that shit. But, yeah.
Do you want me to edit that out?
No, you can keep that in. Because it's actually quite funny. Because I used to see Boney M and think they were quite cool. And looking at it now, I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So I got the moniker of the fifth All Saint because I was always with them. We never went anywhere without each other. I went on tours with them, photo shoots, video shoots, the lot. We used to hang out every single day. We're just like one big dysfunctional family. Dysfunctional, yeah, it was dysfunctional. I mean, what family is not dysfunctional? Do you know what I mean? So it was the same as if any family is, you know, ups, downs, fights and whatnot. But yeah, we were just one unit, and I guess, I was known as the fifth member.
What was it like working with them? Was it hard work? Was it easy?
Was it hard work? It wasn't hard, I wouldn't say hard work in the beginning. It wasn't hard work because, again, we were just doing our thing, going in the studio, banging out some tunes. And then I think once you start generating money, that's when you get all the outside people coming in and whispering in each other's ears and dividing, conquering and all that kind of shit. So it's steadily, and then you've got to try and repeat the success, right? So when you have phenomenal success, the first album, which we didn't even think about in that kind of, we didn't go in the studio and go, oh, we need to make a double platinum album or platinum album. We just went and did our thing. But by the time that goes ridiculous, then everyone's expecting the same thing. So I guess it got steadily harder, I want to say. It was always fun, but I think, listen, man, I've done 5 albums with them. Do you know what I mean? And the last 2, or the last one in particular, I found very
That's testament.
Yeah, I found that very difficult. And I think I hit the brick wall then, and I was like, I've got nothing left to give. You know what I mean? You're talking about from meeting them in 1994, having a whirlwind fucking career with them, and then I think we've done that last album in 2018. So that's a long time. And I just had nothing left to give, and I think, you know, it got quite toxic, if I'm honest. And they were never quite the same after the first breakup, which I think happened the second or third album. But, you know, listen, man, there was a lot of great times. But I think, yeah, for me, it was just hard work. It wasn't fun. You know what I mean? So I think that's kind of it. By the time we did the last album, I think we all kind of just went, yeah. I think we've come to the end of the road there.
So that's it. No more work with All Saints.
No, not for me. I'm done. I don't think you'll be hearing another album from them anytime soon.
Because of the toxicity.
That amongst other things, and I think they're kind of, listen, man, everyone's grown and they're doing, you know, they've got families and they're on to the next thing, whatever they're doing. I mean, never say never. I can't see it happening though. I mean, I'm cool.
Can I move on from All Saints and
please.
just touch on just touch on some general stuff? Like, you know, over the years we see, like in the media or on TV or on YouTube or wherever, where people keep talking about the, you know, hip hop as it is and whatever. But it seems like the people that paved the way very rarely get mentioned or get any plaudits for what they did. What's your feeling on all of that? Like history almost being erased.
Well, put it this way. So it's weird because in America, right? If you ask any of the kids who LL Cool J is, or Wu-Tang Clan, or Grandmaster Flash, or Melly Mel, or Rakim, they'll all know exactly who they are. They know where hip hop started. They know who started it. They'll know the DJs. You know, they'll know the history. The history is there for all to see. But for some reason in the UK, you know, I think a lot of the rappers, you know, the current rappers probably think old school hip hop here started with So Solid School. So Solid Crew.
Yes,
that they consider that as like early rap in this country. Anything before that is kind of, for some reason, not really talked about that much. I don't, you know what? I don't even know why, to be honest with you.
Does it bother you?
It bothers me because I think they should understand who paved the way, how it started, where it started, and who were the pioneers that laid the foundations for them. You know what I mean? I think it's important for them to understand the history and the culture of the craft from a UK perspective.
Name me a small handful of groups, artists that you think should get mentioned in what you just said.
You for one, London Posse, Demon Boys, Duke, Power Lords, Overlord X, Comanche
Hijack.
Sly and them boys, Hijack. Gunshot.
Hard Noise.
Actually, Hard Noise. Yeah, I was listening to their shit the other day. Man, there's loads, man. Merlin.
She Rockers.
Of course, She Rockers, man. Cookie Crew. Yeah, there's loads. I mean, there's loads.
The point I was trying to make with that is basically there's enough to make a mark. To make
100%, and that is the tip of the iceberg. I'd have to go through all my whole record collection because I remember there was that Cold Sweat Records, there was Music of Life,
Catch 22,
there was G Street, Catch 22. There's loads, man. There's loads. But yeah, it's like...
And you know, what was interesting back then as well, every group was individual. Everyone had their own sound. When now we're hearing a lot of copies.
That's the thing. The whole point back in the day was not to sound like someone else.
Yeah, it's
right?
biting.
Called biting, right?
Yeah.
Where now it's like, to try and get on, you need to sound like this person or that person, and everyone's flow is the same. Everyone sounds the same. They're using all the same sounds, you know, in the production. It's like a factory line of fucking clones. Why would you want to do that?
Makes no sense.
No.
I think the challenge was interesting. You know, just to be like yourself, not to be anybody else.
Yeah, it's like, it's okay to take influences, but be yourself. That's what makes you unique, right? There's only one you on the planet. Like when back in the day when you listen to the radio, and I sound like an old cunt now, but you know when LL Cool J came on the radio, then Run DMC, then Rakim, then EPMD, Ultras. You just knew straight away who was who. And I listened to the radio the other day, I can't remember what station I had on, and they were playing, you know, the UK rap. And honestly, it sounded like the same person, one after the other. And that's not being disrespectful in any way, because I like a lot of the music coming out now. But it's like, just be yourself, man. You don't need 100 Central C's or 100 H's or 1,000,000 Stormzy's or 1,000 Drakes. It's like, remember that Eminem video where he just had those clones?
Yeah, the clones.
It's like, be yourself, man. You know what I mean? The flow is exactly the same.
I mean, that's their world, you know. Anyone who's dope, I'll openly
But
say
there's, we're saying that, there is a lot of dope shit out there.
There is, 100%.
You know what I mean? You just have to find it now, amongst all the noise.
But isn't that the same as what we were doing when we were looking through records, the sample? We were finding the good stuff among the noise.
Yeah, but you know what? Because a lot of the record stores we used to go to never even had a turntable. So a lot of the time, I would buy it on the basis of the sleeve and the credits, like who played on it, where it was recorded. But 9 times out of 10, if the sleeve was some mad shit, like this fucking nutcase you put on the screen a minute ago, if it looked like that, I'd think, okay, there's got to be some magic within there somewhere.
When we spoke, you said negativity in the scene.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk on that?
You mean in the scene when we were doing it back in the day? There was this air of elbows out, kind of like, you know, gatekeeping, kind of you're over there, we're over here, kind of fuck you, kind of shit. I never really felt...
Again, I'm going to remind you...
No, exactly.
Yeah,
I mean,
not everyone.
No, exactly, not everyone. But I kind of felt... I've always felt like a little bit of an outsider, you know what I mean? Because I guess we were a little bit different. Who knows, man? But there was always this negative kind of energy. You know what I mean? Especially when you start having success. You fuck these guys think they are. We didn't think we were anyone. We were just fucking doing what we do. You know what I mean?
I mean, look, when we saw you guys on TV, and I'm not just saying me, I'm saying like people I was around, like even your master mixes and stuff like that, we were happy. Do you know what I mean? We wanted, because we just felt like if you made moves, we made moves.
Yeah, listen, man, we were exactly the same. Any kind of hip-hop we saw on TV, especially UK, 'cause remember Phase 1?
Yeah, of course, come on.
Phase 1, I can't remember what TV show we saw them on. We were just happy for whoever was getting on. Do you know what I mean? And I think if there was a little bit more unity, you'd probably see a few more collaborations as well, all that kind of shit.
I think in those days, though, collaborations weren't a thing. We kind of, you know, like when we look at your album, how many collaborations did you have? It was you and Bello.
Yeah.
Right? When I did my solo album.
But we didn't think, but we actually didn't think we could reach out to anyone. We didn't think anyone would want to do anything with us.
That's interesting.
You know what I mean? So we just kind of just got on with it.
Yeah. See, from my perspective,
tell a lie, because we did a tune with Caveman.
Caveman, yeah, that was a freestyle thing, right?
Yeah.
And I did a tune with Mello.
Yeah.
MC Mello, big up Mello.
Yeah, big up Mello, man.
And obviously big up Caveman as well, MCM.
Big up Caveman.
You know?
Big up Billy Business.
Yep, 100%.
Big up Swift.
Master Swift.
You know what I mean?
All of them.
Yeah.
Pogo. What about, was there any particular backstabbing scenarios?
Well, Cash Crew.
Oh.
They dissed us on the record, man. And I remember we were at Hammersmith Palais. It might have been a Westwood Jam, actually. And he played this tune called Bouquet of Barbed Wire. I remember listening to it and I said, yo, Bello, because I heard them diss Caveman, I think, on it. They dissed a bunch of people. And I I'm not saying, Bello, they dissed us, man. And we were so pissed off. We were like, nah, Bello goes, okay, we're going to the studio. And we cut this, we cut this song called Sons of the Devil.
Oh, that's them. Okay.
Yeah, which was a response to them dissing us. And then from there, I think they jumped me in a club in, where were we? Camden. It was in a club in Camden. And they were there. And I remember just feeling bam in my face. So that was the only real beef we kind of had. And then we found out they were going to be at another Westwood Jam somewhere. We went down there with baseball bats and all that type of shit. We went there tooled up. You know what I mean? But obviously we didn't see them and it never happened.
So is everything cool now?
I haven't seen them. There was one of the guys I see, I don't know, a few years ago. He was cool. He said hello. But never went any further than that. Everyone grows up. It was more, we were grown-ass men. By the time I saw him again, it was grown-ass men. I think there was a girl in the mix as well at the time. But listen, it's young men's fucking bullshit. You know what I mean? No one got stabbed. No one got hurt. I got a whack in the head in the club. No, you know what I mean? That was it.
Did you have to deal with jealousy at all, in particular when the All Saints thing took off?
Not to my face.
But you felt it?
Yeah.
Did you even care?
No. I didn't give a shit. You know what I mean? I was just doing my thing, man. What everyone else is doing, what they're on, whatever.
We won't dwell on that. I just wanted to see if you felt anything, because we all feel it at some point.
Yeah,
and quite often it's paranoia.
Yeah, you can sense something. You know what I mean? Who gives a fuck?
Moving on from there,
Yeah.
you basically signed a deal, I believe, with Sony.
Yeah.
And that was a producer album that you were doing.
It was supposed to be a producer album. So my idea was, okay. So Puff Daddy, I think, Puff Daddy put out an album, right, where he was the kind of host, producer, and then, he got his roster of artists to feature on tracks. Puff Daddy and the Family. There's loads of kind of albums like that where producers put their crew on. Dre done it, fucking Puff Daddy done it. Marley Marl, yeah, all that type of shit. So my idea was to make a rap album and just put my boys on and get features from different artists I've worked with, that type of shit. And I think I might have mentioned it to a couple of people, and then it spread around the industry. KGee wants to do an album. At this time, I'd already had massive success. Do you know what I mean? And so anyway, there becomes a little bit of a bidding war. I hadn't even recorded one song yet at this time. So no one knew what I wanted to fucking do. They just was like, yeah, he's going to make an album. Shit. So anyway, I ended up signing with Sony. And yeah, no demos. I had no demos, and I got some crazy amount of money. And they were just like, right, yeah, man, we love what you've done and blah, 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 blah. Go and make your record. So I went in the studio and made a rap album. You know what I mean? Made a rap album, get my boys on it, this guy from here, da-da-da-da-da. And I remember going to, the label was actually a subsidiary of Sony called Instant Karma. And I remember going into the A&R meeting. They was excited to hear the record and put it on. And everyone's just looking at me like, okay, play something else. And I'm just there like, ooh, okay. Anyway, this was a common theme throughout each track I played, which was straight hip hop. They were like, so what are you doing then? I'm like, I made the record. Like, you've heard Puff Daddy and Family, that kind of thing. Like, he's the face. He's got his crew on it, his team. They were like, yeah, but we signed you though. But so what are you doing? I'm like, I'm the producer. They were like, nah, we signed you as an artist. We want you to be up front. I was like, what do you mean up front? We want you to rap. I was like, fuck's sake. So basically I had to go back in the studio and redo the whole fucking record as the lead artist. And like I said to you before, I never wanted to be up front. You know what I mean? I always wanted to, I was just quite happy doing my thing behind the boards, doing a bit of scratching and mixing, doing the odd yeah. And that was kind of it, right? So now I'm in this situation where They gave me a shitload of money. I'm signed to a major label, and they want the product. So I'm like, fuck's sake. I mean, of course I can rap, but I don't consider myself a rapper at all. But then I thought to myself, the fucking P. Diddy can rap, I can rap too. So then I ended up having to be the front man on the album. And it was scary because I didn't want to do that. But I felt like I was forced to do it.
I mean, all along throughout your career, you've been on the
Yeah,
production,
yeah.
someone else has been front.
100%. So it was a new territory for me. I was like, damn. So it's always like, be careful what you wish for, you know what I mean? But that's not what I wished for. I just wanted to make a record, put my people on, and it just...
Why wasn't that made clear from the beginning?
Because I had no demos. They signed me from hype.
But surely either you should have said, can I do a production album? Or they should have said, what's your plan?
They didn't really ask me. They just kind of said, I just said I wanted to make a record. They didn't really ask what type of record, how you're going to do it, who's going to be involved. Just go and do your thing. But they probably thought, stupidly, that I was going to be the artist. And I was like, you know, at the time I had the blonde dreads, you know what I mean? I looked a certain way. I'd produced one of the biggest girl bands on the fucking planet. So in their head, they're like, oh shit. Oh. And they put 2 and 2 together and come up with fucking...
Okay, so they basically signed you because you produced an album. They knew you were the producer, not the front person, right?
Yeah.
But then you had this blonde hair with the dreads.
Yes, so I had a look.
So they signed you for the look.
All that shit, right? If I'm honest, that's probably, you know, was a big part of it. So when I realised that, the first thing I did was shave my fucking head. I shaved my head. That's what I did. I was in
what was that, rebellion?
I was like, what? I'm more than just a hairstyle. Woof, woof, woof. And then I could see the red. No.
Slow motion.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? So, yeah, so that was fun anyway. But yeah, so I ended up having to make this record, which, you know, it was a good album, but I had imposter syndrome again because I'm like, I'm not a rapper. I could rap, but I can fucking ride a bike, but I'm not fucking, you know, BMX king. You know what I'm saying? Driving a car doesn't make you an F1 driver, is my point, right? So I made an album. It was a good album though, but, you know, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know. Well, it was just surreal. Like, what the fuck am I doing? But I had to do it.
So you had to kind of refine yourself again.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's hard to explain because when I had to do shows, you know, because I was getting on TV and all this type of shit, I hated doing interviews because they just asked me shit about All Saints and, you know, just stupid shit. I'm about the music. I'm hip hop. And you're asking me stupid shit like, what did you have for breakfast? What colour underwear? Which is your favourite?
That was my next question.
Yeah. Black, actually. Yeah, so I was never about that. I never wanted to be no type of pop icon or anything like that. Do you know what I mean? I was serious about what I did and my craft and my music. And I wanted to be known as a serious producer. Not some pop sensation bullshit. I was never about that. So I was, you know, when I had to do that and then I had to do shows, I remember just thinking, what am I doing?
So do you think as soon as you shaved your head,
maybe
the look kind of was a bit too aggressive for them or something?
Yeah, because I remember doing a photo shoot, right? So they put me in a studio, photographic studio with fucking some geezer that he shot for Vogue. And there's a bunch of stylists and makeup artists and I'm walking, I'm like, what the there's a set built, all this type of shit. And I got this stylist coming up to me saying, oh, this will look great on you. And then I'm like, I'm not wearing none of this shit. Oh, look, we need to fuck with your hair and do your make. And I'm just like, okay, hold it down. And then they got me jumping around and doing all these poses and all this crap. And I'm just like, what the fuck am I doing? Do you know what I mean? So I just said to them, nah, do you know what? I'm not doing it, man. Let me get my own photographer. I don't need all this hoo-ha. I can wear what I wear. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, I got my boy in. And this Vogue photographer is like 20 grand a day, by the way. Right? Anyway, got my boy to come down, a couple of hours, we just hired out some shitty studio somewhere. And I remember I had this Evisu yellow hoodie, right, at the time. And he was like, oh, that looks dope. You know what I mean? We just done a photo shoot, which was fun. I didn't feel like a fucking dick. I was wearing what I wanted to wear, and it was cool. Anyway, we chose the photos we liked, sent them off, and then we come back and was like, we're not sure about the hoodie thing. You look a bit aggressive. And I'm thinking, me, look. I remember at the time you had like NSYNC and fucking, you know, all these boy bands wearing hoodies, Timberlands, all that. And I'm like, I look, so they're cool, but I'm wearing a hoodie now. All of a sudden I'm aggressive. So I went for all that shit.
But you also went through some other shit which a lot of rappers in the UK at the time weren't getting.
What's that?
Right? And that other shit was actually good shit, but it didn't work in your favor, I guess. You done this video.
Oh, yeah.
How much did you get paid to do that video? As in, not you personally paid. How much was the budget to make the video?
Oh, it's 250 grand.
Bro, no, I don't know anyone in the UK that's got
Mate, I think it was probably the most expensive video debut of a UK artist at the time. I mean, it was crazy. It was 2 days. It was about 100 extras. We hired out what's the club in there? It was the Hippodrome we hired out. I had an Aston Martin, all this type of shit, special effects, fucking film crews. It was a production. And I remember sitting there going, huh? It was all mad because I'm thinking, yo, this is getting out of hand. One, where's all this money coming from? Two, I know, yeah, no, exactly. Like,
and no one even asks if you want to do it.
No, it was just surreal, man. So I just kind of just ended up just going with it, kind of thing. Listen, don't get me wrong, it was fun. You know what I mean, in a way, but it was all a bit like, yeah, what the fuck? That I should have got that fucking tattooed in my forehead. What the actual?
250 grand. And in that video, do you want to tell people which video it is if they want to check it?
Oh, I don't really care. It's called I Don't Really Care. I think we've done 3 videos. One I shot in Jamaica, which was like a DJ record. It was based off a sample, Upside Down. The second one was my tale of how I got to where I was going and how hip hop changed my life. And the first one was kind of just a booty-shaped fucking tune called I Don't Really Care. Great singles. You know, I was doing my best P. Diddy impression, I think, at the time with the rapping. And I think at that time we were transitioning into UK garage. So the window was kind of a bit mad. Do you know what I mean? And I was like, what am I doing rapping anyway?
So what happened with that deal?
So that deal, so after that first album, I mean, mate, the second video we shot in the same studio as Star Wars was shot.
Wow.
What's it? Fucking Pinewood Studios.
Pinewood, yeah.
We shot in Pinewood. Like a set was built. Again, actors and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, this is mad. Like, okay, let's do it. Then the third video was shot in Jamaica. I'm like, I'm not going to complain. You know what I mean? But it's all mad. So anyway, I don't know how much money they spunked. But needless to say, not long after the album come out, the label went bust. Yeah. So they had a few other acts on the label. I mean, they just fucking were spunking dough left, right, centre. So yeah, that was the end of that. And I was kind of like, phew, I'll have to do that again.
So you didn't have to pay that money back because
Nah.
right. Because quite often they just keep you on a show.
Yeah, no, I just ran off into the sunset and went on a bender for about 2 years.
Okay, on their money.
Allegedly.
Oh, great answer. You also DJ for a couple of like worldwide known names as well. How was that?
It was amazing. I went on tour with... See, when I'm relaying these stories back, it almost sounds like an out-of-body experience, but... yeah, probably the biggest ones was Busta Rhymes and Snoop Dogg. I did that tour around Europe.
And you actually DJed for them as well, wow.
Well, I was the opening act for them, for fuck's sake, as a DJ. So I was there to get the crowd moving and hype it up and all that type of shit. So, yeah, that was mad. I mean, yeah, what can I say?
What kind of audience? Turnout, like 10, 20,000?
Yeah.
Easy.
Because it was, as far as I can remember, small stadiums.
Right.
Yeah, so you're talking big...
Not arenas, stadiums.
Yeah, stadiums, arenas, whatever you want to call them, big fucking things. Do you know what I mean? A lot of people.
I mean, there's so much. I mean, I know we could probably talk for a couple of years and still find new things because I always end up finding new things.
You asked me a question earlier, like what was one of the biggest events or moments in my career? Performing at Wembley with All Saints. Wembley. And doing Top of the Pops.
What was that, 80,000?
I'm not even sure what it is. It's a
You're
lot.
talking stadium, not arena.
The stadium's outside, isn't it?
Right.
It was a stadium then. Because I was on stage. I was their DJ as well. And they had a section during the show where they had to do costume change. So there's a 3 minutes where I had to fill at Wembley. I mean, it was throughout the whole tour, but at Wembley, I remember they all went off stage. 3 minutes to kill. So I think I put on a record and I just had to do the whole throw your hands in the air type shit. But when you haven't rehearsed anything and you kind of winging it at Wembley though, yeah, I was just remember looking out and you see a sea of people and you're thinking, what am I doing? 3 minutes feels like 3 hours. So that was probably quite a poignant moment. The fact that you're at Wembley and doing Top of the Pops, because that's an iconic show, right? Your dream, regardless what music he was doing, was to get on Top of the Pops.
That was the place to be.
That was the fucking holy grail.
I wonder how many UK rappers actually got there. I know Merlin did.
Yeah, I mean, I'd done it because All Saints got on there, so I went on there again. I was a DJ.
So we did it, me and Mark B.
Bello did it.
Bello did it with KLF. Merlin did it with Beatmasters.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's quite a few.
So when you think about it, we were doing things, man, back then. But yeah, like you said before, it's like none of that shit is really documented or recognised.
We need to start like letting people know.
No, definitely.
And putting some facts straight. What are you doing currently? I know we were talking about like, university and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, man. So I think after that last All Saints album, I was just like, I just needed a break from just music in general. And I got kind of tired of the whole music industry and the pop industry, all that type of shit. I wanted to get as far away from that as possible. And so I thought, I know, I'm going to take a master's degree in music business just to... Basically, I've always wanted to start my own label, right? But then realised, you don't know fuck all about the music business, really. You've always paid people to do shit for you.
That thing about starting your own record label.
Yeah.
In the early days, like, didn't you used to write with a pen?
Huh?
Didn't you used to write with a pen?
No, exactly. So when I'm thinking... It's funny, because on the way here, I was thinking, I've just started my own label. But I actually did that back in the early 90s, actually before All Saints. Probably not long after you was doing your thing. But I was doing bootlegs, though. I wasn't making rap records per se.
Yeah, you were just remixing other people's stuff.
I was finding acapellas and putting hip-hop beats under them and pressing up 1,000 and going around all the record shops and selling them out of the boot of my car. So I did that for a few years. I was making more money doing that than fucking anything else. That's how I kind of survived.
But what I'm saying is the idea was always there.
Yeah, the idea was always there. The idea was always there. Even before that, when I used to buy white labels, I'd write KGee records on it. You know what I mean? That type of shit.
See, this is what I'm saying. You should have acted on that early.
Yeah. So I had my bootleg record label back in the day. But anyway, so after achieving more or less everything I wanted to achieve doing what I was doing, right? I was like, okay, so what next? I want to do my own label. I just want to put out my own music on my own label. I don't want to hear no noise from anyone else. I want to do what I want to do with the acts I want to work with the sounds I want to work with, and do that. That's what I got into the music business for. By the time all the success was coming, I was working with all these acts, and I was just like, again, I was working with a lot of people that I had no business working with. But it was like, it'd be good for your career, you should do this, you should do that, da-da-da-da-da. And it just comes like noise, you're like, oh, fuck. And that's when I was just like, nah, do you know what? I'm going to university, I'm going to do a master's in music business. So I did that. I got, that was hard though.
How many years?
No, it was only a year, an intense year. And actually it was longer than a year, it was more like 2 years because COVID came and fucked shit up. A few other things happened, so I had to start again. But I had to learn how to learn again because obviously I left school with O-levels in 86. And then this is 2019. I'm going to do level 7, which is one under a doctorate, master's degree, right? So I was like, shit, what am I doing, man? Like, I'm way out of my depth on this one. know what I mean, I like a challenge. But this is, you fucking taking a piss. And anyway, I managed to pull that out of the bag. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. I literally had to learn a bunch of shit I knew nothing about, like literally from scratch. Anyway, done that, ended up getting a master's degree with distinction. And then I got a phone call from a young woman called Michelle Escoffrey, you would have heard of. She's big in the game as a songwriter. Also, she was the president of PRS, blah, blah, blah. She's got loads of accolades. But anyway, the point is, she was in the education space and she said, what are you planning to do after your master's? I was like, not too sure. She was like, cut a long story short, she goes, you've got the perfect credentials to be a tutor. What we're trying to do is write a course for MCs, a rap course. So I was like, I've never written a fucking course before. She goes, yeah, but you started out in rap, you've got a deep knowledge of rap, you've worked with hundreds of rappers, and you've got the academic credentials to marry the two. So I was like, yeah, not sure, man. Anyway, she convinced me to do a meeting, done a meeting. I liked the idea. They'd already had a rap course there, but it wasn't really popping off, as they say. So then I was tasked to write a course, which is one of the first of its kind in Europe. And then, yeah, man, it was taught in Guildford, London, and Clapham. It's still running today. I became a senior lecturer. So amongst other things, I do that. And yeah, I've got my label, which is, again, it's just an outlet for me to do art the way I want to do it, without, you know, no A&R, no one with their fingers in the pie telling me what to do. This is just purely a passion project where I get to do exactly what I want to do, and it's my vision.
So how are you finding the sort of the education side of things?
Do you know what? I love the students. The students are great. They make it worthwhile. You know, I see a lot of me in them, and they're in an era now where it's a lot easier to get on in terms of they've got social media. You know, you can upload a record today and it's out to the world. So the barriers to entry are a lot lower, is my point, from when we were making records. You know, well, apart from you, of course, you just done it yourself anyway. But, you know, you had to have a label, you had to have studios were expensive, blah, blah, blah. To get on radio is impossible, all this kind of shit. But now, you know, kids have got a studio on their laptop and they can make music and they can put it out. But what I wanted to do was instill in them, like what we talked about before, was a bit of the history and the culture of where it came from. Like we both know, they're like, huh? There was rap before So Solid Crew? What? So I'm just trying to bring a bit of the history and the culture into it.
Are they getting it?
Yeah, they get it. They get it. And then just giving them different looks, different sounds, different textures. You know, it's a lot of learning by doing, where I'm not standing there going, cat rhymes with Matt, and then you get a rat. It's not that. It's not rhyming by numbers. It's, okay, we're going to produce a body of work. These are the constraints. Here's the brief. Let's do it. Yeah, but I've never rapped on a hip-hop record before. I only do drill. But now you're going to fucking learn, innit? You can't be single-minded. You have to be open-minded. You have to be willing to experiment and get out of your comfort zone. That's how you get growth.
I think it's also important to show them that a challenge isn't something to be scared of.
Exactly, and this is a safe space to fail. Again, I want you to fail and come again. Fail again, come again. You know what I mean? As an MC, you should be able to jump on any beat. If you're saying you're an MC, not a rapper, and we know there's a difference, right? If you're going to be an MC, how the MCs learnt their trade? One of the big ones was the pirate radio stations. Whatever the DJ plays, you got to jump. You just got to be able to go. You know what I mean? So this is testing your skills in different ways. So that's kind of, it's like a Olympic course for MCs, putting them in different events, seeing how they thrive. And when they come out at the end of it, they're like, shit, I didn't know I could rap on a drum and bass tune. I didn't know I could rap on this. I didn't rap on that.
How old are the kids?
you know, from 18 up to, you know, your older ones up in their 20s.
You should get some of them to come on the channel.
Yeah, there's some great talent, man.
Yeah, bring them.
There's some great talent. I mean, they introduced me to music that I ain't heard of before. I'm like, oh shit, what's that? There's some great, really good talent that have come out of there, and you know, they get to do live events, they do ciphers, we work with live bands, all that type of shit. Plus, they learn, you know, about business side of it. I think now, whereas they can set up their own labels and put out their own music, they need to understand how to make money, how to keep it, and then how to not spunk it.
When you went into the education thing and you've had all this success and all that kind of stuff going on, you've seen 250 grand video shoots,
Yeah.
right? By going back into the education system and now taking a different role, did you ever feel like your life's gone backwards?
Nah.
Because you said something to me that was really important, which is that you're more successful now than you've ever been. Explain that. Because how do you go from having 250 grand videos to being in the education system teaching, and you consider that as more successful than?
Well, the other thing is I'm still making music. I'm putting out great records on my own terms, right? But it's hard to explain. I don't want to sound like I'm up my own ass, but giving back to the youth that is up and coming is rewarding on many levels, man. They were where I was at one point, and I didn't have anyone to ask questions, or who'd been there before and were telling me, yo, do this or do that, or try this or try that, or, you know, give me some knowledge. So for me to have gone through all that and not be able to give it back, that don't make no sense. And the reason why I say I'm more successful now is because I'm more comfortable now with myself, within myself. I'm not chasing nothing. I'm not chasing the money. I'm not chasing fame. I was never doing that anyway. But like we said before, there's levels. What is success to you? Success to me is sitting on my couch in my house with my wife and my 2 baby girls who I've just had, and just being me.
You can be an artist, you can be the greatest artist, but if you ain't got your business together, then you ain't going to succeed. Because like somewhere down the line, you're going to get shafted.
No, 100%. Like when I went off and did my masters, and then I went into education, and I was doing, you know, I was only working a couple of days a week really anyway, but I was always going in the studio and experimenting with stuff and coming up with different projects. So by the time I've got this label up and running, I've already got 5 or 6 projects I want to put out already. So I'm not sitting at home twiddling my fucking thumbs. I've written a course, I've done a master's degree, I've set up my own label, and I've written and produced 5 projects ready to go.
We haven't got much time left, so I want to get that in. So Stinky Puppy.
So Stinky Puppy is my production company, stroke label. In fact, it's so new, I don't really know what it is yet. It's evolved. My ideas are evolving all the time. So at the minute, it's Stinky Puppy Recordings, but now I'm thinking maybe it should be Stinky Puppy Productions, because it's going to be more than one thing. I want to get into books, film, TV, merch, all that shit. Yeah, I've got so many ideas, and that's what it is.
So have you got anyone signed to the label?
Yes. So I have my first act, which actually is called Dogs or Gods, right? They're a punk, rap, giving 0 fucks type of act. Fully experimental. No one knows.
I love it though. I've seen the
No one knows what they're fucking doing.
It's sick though. It's good.
Yeah. So it's about pushing boundaries. It's about not being put in a box, and it's kind of, we're championing the DIY thing, artists that dare to be different and saying what you want to say. You know, we're not, you know, they're there to tell the truth about what they've seen, what they've done, and do it in their own way. And I love producing it, and it gets me excited. You know what I mean? And they've kind of been used as a guinea pig to understand how this all works. So everything that we've done so far is like, ooh. Oh.
That's the best way though.
Oh yeah.
That
People like it. You know what I mean?
But also, I think it's also because people like you. Whatever you're putting out there, I think people are just gravitating to, and they're giving it a chance because they know that your stamp is approved.
Yeah, but I don't put any of that stuff on my personal page. Stinky Puppy and Karl Gordon, It's two different things.
Yeah, but I think some people do know, though.
Yeah, of course they know. Of course they know. But like I said to you, I want it to be known or stand on its own 2 feet. You know what I mean? But yeah, people will know. People will find out. But again, it's for me to just... I'm just creating art, man. I'm creating art. I'm putting it out into the world and seeing what happens. And for me right now, again, when I say I'm more successful, success is not numbers. Success is feeling.
Happiness, satisfaction,
and it's happiness.
feeling.
And the birth of my daughters, man, that just changed everything. I mean, they're only 3 months old now, and I'm a girl dad of twin baby girls, and there's a switch that went bang. Oh shit! Like,
why wait so long to have children?
I had to wait for the right woman. And I never wanted to do it any other way than marry the woman of my dreams, and for her to bless me with children. And it took me this long to find that. But I had fun on the journey. But yeah, I'm happy, man. I'm content. And everything else is a blessing. Like, I'm being able to create art, put music out, mentor the young'uns, bring up my girls. You know, I'm there for my wife, and we have a happy home. And I'm content. You know what I mean? I'm just content. It's got nothing to do with money or any of that shit. Look, I'm comfy, do you know what I mean? I've had more money in my account before, but it's irrelevant. I'm just happy on a different space, man.
Have you got any final words?
Yeah, just listen to any creative out there, even Gen X creatives, Gen Z creatives to Gen X creatives. Never give up on your dreams. It don't matter how old you are. Because people say, oh, you get to your 50s, what are you doing this for? Yeah, shut the fuck up. Creativity never leaves your body, man. So if you've still got it in you, or even if you're still starting, just do it. You know what I mean? Just do it. Because the last thing you want to do is be on your deathbed going, oh, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have put that music out. I wish I would have fucking started my own label. I wish. Do it. That's it.
And that's advice that is coming from someone who's done it all, from the ground up, from the gutter, all the way to major success worldwide. So, you know, who better to take that kind of advice from than Karl KGee. But yeah, aside from that, obviously, starting from the ground up, like I said, with Outlaw Posse, then going on to massive worldwide success with All Saints, doing a whole bunch of other things, then taking a kind of a back step, going into education and teaching the youth, which is also important, because all the knowledge, what's the point of all this knowledge if we can't pass it on to the next generation and teach them to pass the knowledge on to the next generation after them as well. All those things are really important. But yeah, just want to say thanks for coming down again, bro. Really appreciate it. I'll put your links in the description and everything so everyone knows where to find you. But yeah, thanks a lot for watching. And please make sure you go and follow him. Check the link in the description. It's going to be there. And yeah, thanks again. And we'll see you soon. Take care. Peace.